Remember, if your life is bad, it can get worse, because King Isaac's life was a complete mess. He was diagnosed with a new disease, and it would probably even be named after him. Half a year to live was all he had left. But in a desperate act, he screams at the sky in the middle of the street, begging to be allowed to live, and he got his wish. But he was reincarnated as a skeleton man, who was the feared demon king. Then he was kind of betrayed by the gods, and due to a clerical error, he was reincarnated as a human baby, who is possibly a saint. But first, leave a like on this video, and the goal for this video is 7,000 likes. Of course, subscribe to the channel, so we can finally reach 100,000 subscribers. And for this part, I've once again brought you all the available chapters of this series, and so as soon as more come out, I'll release them to the members first, and after a good number of chapters are out, I'll compile everything and release it for everyone. And to get access to these videos, just click Become a Member down below. And hey guys, last week, I finally got the option to applaud videos. So to support the channel and this video, if you guys could applaud it, it would help me out a ton. And so that's about it. Enough stalling. Let's get to the video. Our story begins with the man speaking desperately. He wants to live and he's receiving some news, very sad news from his doctor, who's telling him it's a disease they've never seen before, and the disease will probably be named after him. And while the doctor offers his condolences, our boy becomes extremely sad and desperate upon hearing from his doctor that he only has 6 months to live at most. As he leaves the doctor's office, he walks through the streets bumping into people, and while everyone stares at him, he just thinks that this can't be possible. All he did his entire life was live like a worker ant, and just when his life was finally getting better, this is when he's going to die. And at this moment, the cliché could happen, and he would be blessed with a reincarnation after getting hit by a truck. But instead, he mutters that the street is too dangerous, and after he falls to the ground, he just starts to break out in a cold sweat, thinking about how they said he only has 6 months to live, and how it's so unfair. And as incredible as it may seem, he received this news on the same day he won the lottery. Yeah, the kid isn't unlucky at all, right? And as he trembles thinking that he wants to live, he just mentally begs for someone, it doesn't matter who, to save him from death. And so he starts to scream looking at the sky that he wants to live, and asks for someone to save him from death. And that same scream he let out to the sky, desperately wanting to escape death, he screams it again. Only now he's a skeleton, thinking that he knows he said he wanted to live, but he didn't literally mean that just anything would do. And of all the possible things, he could have been reincarnated as, he asks himself, why did he have to be reincarnated as a bald skeleton? And he can't even enjoy the worst part of being alive in this body. And as he's thinking this, several monsters rush to attack him. But by the time he realizes it, he grabs his sword, which is also made of a skull, and kills all of those monsters, thinking that he's going to kill them all. And when he notices, a gigantic ogre is coming from behind him. But just like that, he leaps, dodging the ogre's blow and flying over it. He can finally put an end to all this nonsense, telling that ogre to just die already. And so he cuts off the monster's head, thinking that this is the last of them. And now he's finally dead, and the extermination of the rebel forces is complete. And as he walks away, he thinks that after being reincarnated as a skeleton, a low-class summoned monster, he evolved into an undead, a lich, and as he walks, all those demons celebrate his return, saying that the immortal sovereign king is back. And as he carries that monster's head, he thinks that he brought prosperity to the demon race, who were on the brink of ruin. He feels pretty happy thinking about it, because he may not have any hair, but at least he's the great demon king, and so everyone starts chanting his name, calling him the great and evil demon king Isaac. But he gets really pissed off, asking, how many times has he told them that his name isn't Isaac, but rather, and he thinks they're all idiots, because they can't even pronounce his name right. But now he's finally leaving that place, and as he leaves, the demons behind him ask where their king is going. He says he's going to take what is his by right, thinking that he's going to achieve his final goal. And this is the first time I've ever seen a skull blush on its cheekbones. And he thinks that his final goal is to be able to eat and even feel pain, because he wants to become human again. He heads towards the temple, throwing that head on the ground. The people are completely shocked, and he has finally arrived in the divine realm, facing those 5 gods sitting before him. And he says that with this, he has taken care of all the factions, challenging the gods. And he hopes they haven't forgotten their promise. And as written in their contract, he wants to become human. Everyone around them wonders how this is possible, and they thought it would take him at least 500 years to do this. And what kind of workaholic freak is he? And 2 people are talking, wondering if this isn't some scheme by the higher-ups to turn him into a free slave. He says that he can hear what they're saying. Then he asks the gods why they're taking so long. They said they would turn him into a human if he took care of them. And that god in the center gives a little smirk, asking if he could do one more thing for them. But our protagonist wonders if they think he's some kind of empty head, just like his skull makes him look. and completely pissed off. He starts to exude that demonic aura of his and asks what kind of idiot they take him for, thinking he's going to make them pay for trying to trick him, the gods. And he calls them sons of bitches and asks if they really ordered him to do all of that when they didn't even intend to turn him into a human. And so the gods say that in the end he realized it, and the other says that's why they were against it from the very beginning. And so our boy starts screaming at them, asking if that's all they have to say now, because he was summoned through a forbidden art, outside the laws of nature. It makes him incapable of dying, and he can't die of old age because he is one of the undead, and his abilities have also become a threat to the divine realm. So if you noisy bastards, don't make him human. He will kill everyone. If you fail to keep your promise, then you will pay with your lives. And now he begins to charge up a gigantic power with that demonic aura of his, and he says that now it's their turn to become skulls too, just like him. As he's charging that immense power, his explosion is dissipated. He's completely shocked, asking what just happened, because his mana is disappearing. He can't even move properly. And then another god smirks and says that he's so pathetic, and those who have their names written there cannot move, no matter what they are. And so he basically writes our protagonist's name on a maggot, saying that he will now banish this disaster. And this is the highest class sacred art, used to seal disasters like him. He should have been grateful just for receiving their orders. How dare a demon like him challenge them? Now he must live as an insect. And so this is our little skull. They wonder if they really chose to seal him inside a hairy lizard. But to the gods' surprise, that larva begins to glow, and they ask themselves what that is. And that's when our skull calls them idiots and says they should have been faster, and that you should never show your tricks, because he'd rather explode than become an insect. He basically begins his self-destruction, which surprises many of the gods, who tell him to stop. But he tells them to eat shit, saying they're a bunch of assholes. Then his entire body basically starts to glow, and a huge explosion happens in the divine realm, destroying part of that temple. But the gods manage to survive and wonder if he really self-destructed. But the other god asks if the spell worked, and that hairy one says that the spell was certainly activated, and the Demon King's soul has been sealed, and thanks to their divinity they succeeded. And since the Demon King is gone, they should be able to recover their powers, and they discuss how every time a demon disappears, they become even stronger. But still they can't let their guard down, because they don't know when another disaster like Isaac might be born. They must create the perfect show of a saint in the human realm, so he can exterminate every remaining demon there. And this other god asks if they'll be okay, and if it won't exhaust too much of their powers. But that other guy tells him not to worry, because he has selected a suitable soul to place in the saint's body. Meanwhile, to the insolent skeleton of the Demon King, they are going to torture him for all eternity. That's what's going on in our skeleton's head. He thinks he must have lost his mind, being tricked by the gods. But he slowly starts to open his eyes, not understanding what's happening there, and wondering if he's become stupid, because he was a skeleton with no brain. But he doesn't understand why it's so bright, and what these hands are that he's seeing, and this body that he's feeling. And apparently, he has finally managed to become a human. He starts thinking that the gods wanted him dead, and that they sealed him away somehow. But then, he hears a servant saying that the saint has opened his eyes. He's left wondering, "What do you mean, saint?" As the maid asks if he enjoyed his little nap. And the other butler says it would be better if he slept a little longer. Meanwhile, he's wondering who these people are, and if they're his nannies, and if he's really become a human again. But anyway, he hears that background character saying there's no other way, and he feels a little bad for him. But they have to do their job, and they beg the saint for 1,000 pardons, because they know he just woke up, but he'll have to go back to sleep now, forever and ever. And so the little baby gets really scared, thinking that he just died. So why should he have to die again? He becomes completely desperate. And this nanny guy says he's very sorry, but he needs to put him to sleep forever. He shoves the baby bottle into his mouth, but our little guy starts to turn away, refusing to drink that stuff. And that guy is completely surprised, asking why he won't eat, while our little protagonist wonders if they're messing with him. Because now that he's finally a human, there's no way he's going to eat something as suspicious as this. He doesn't even understand why he became a human in the first place. But then, he hears those nannies begging him to please eat, like a normal baby, and then go to sleep forever, calling him Sir Isaac. This leaves our little guy pretty surprised, wondering what they just called him. And what do they mean Isaac? He remembers how the demons used to call him Lord Isaac. That's another pronunciation of his real name, which is Yitzhak. And when they used the banishment spell, disaster, to seal him away, they must have spelled it Isaac. That has to be why. So he was never sealed. He just ended up being reincarnated in a different body with the same name. He's absolutely thrilled about this because the gods simply misspelled his name, and he starts to give a devilish little smile, thinking what a bunch of fools they are. and to think they actually believed they had won. But in the end, they couldn't even manage to seal him. But just then, that guy shoves a wooden spoon right into his mouth, and he thinks, no, now I'm definitely going to die again. But when he tastes it, he realizes it's some kind of vegetable juice, and he wonders if they're trying to kill him with this kind of garbage. But as he looks at their reaction, he starts to feel something strange. And so in the West Central Temple at the Holy Rela Empire, a bishop walks through the temple, thinking that a certain baby should have been in his coffin a long time ago. But then someone stops him and says that he seems very excited. And this is the Emperor of the Holy Rela Empire, Alexander Heathcliff Rela. And so the three of them bow before him, hailing him as the son of the empire. The emperor asks what he came here to do. The bishop says they came to greet the saint of the house of Exua, and that those in a holy position must see the saint. But this emperor gives him a very malicious smirk and says that from the way he's talking, it sounds like paying his respects to the saint is a burden. He asks if it would not be a problem if something went wrong again after the previous saint candidate was left in the care of the holy faith. But just then they hear a baby cry. The emperor is startled, wondering what's happening. But the bishop just gives a little smile, and now everyone runs towards the young master. When the emperor and the others enter, the maids are talking about how the baby is so cute and how he's playing with his little tummy. And he ate a lot too. Meanwhile, the bishop is completely shocked, wondering how this is even possible. How is this boy still alive, even after drinking all of that? And he starts to panic, getting absolutely furious, thinking that wasn't just some vegetable juice. And now we flash back to a few minutes earlier, while our boy was drinking that vegetable juice, realizing that something strange was entering his body. But then he realizes it's holy poison, and it's a devastating poison that completely destroys the sacred powers of the members of the clergy, and it doesn't have any immediate effects. But since it's a poison, it can be fatal if a large amount of it accumulates in the body. However, this poison is made from demon mana, so as a former demon king, this is perfect for him. And giving things made of demon mana to a demon like him is simply wonderful. And he keeps blushing even though he's a skeleton, thinking that this baby food is a feast for him. And he starts screaming, asking for more, in baby language, of course. And the nannies realize that he liked that vegetable juice a lot. And he says it won't have any immediate effects, but at some point he's going to kick the bucket. But this little baby gives him a thumbs up and thinks that this mana absorption is perfect for him. And okay, now what he needs to do is enter his own body, beyond his consciousness, the unconscious world, and in its depths find its source. And so, as he's sort of swimming in the depths of his body, he thinks that he has to create a mana core. And very confidently, he says it's a good thing this is a very safe place, and now he just has to stay focused and pour all the mana he absorbed into the core. He's going to need it if he wants to use magic later, so he can prepare it for now. But when he realizes it, that mana is so strong it looks like it's going to explode. But that light starts to fade, and he wonders what's happening. And the mana core, it should be one of the 3 primary colors. But why is his mana core white? But he thinks this is a huge problem. How could he have so much power accumulated in such a small core? That was just formed. And then he gives a smug little smile, saying that this is far beyond his expectations. And he wonders how many blessings have been accumulated in this little boy's body? So young. And if he cultivates it well, perhaps he can become a monster, much stronger than he was in his past life. And so our cute little boy becomes very happy, thinking that now he'll live as Isaac. He remembers that in his first life, he begged the heavens to let him live again. And the desperate wish that was engraved on his soul was survival. No matter how it happened, he wanted to survive. And in the end, that was his beginning as the Skeleton King. And now as Isaac, these spells have been inherited by this body. And so, now our little boy will be able to use them even as a baby. And so, those villains wonder if he finally died. And they want to take a look. But just then our little boy holds out his hand, which really surprises the two of them, as he in baby talk asks for another bottle, because he wants to become even stronger. And now back in the present, the Emperor says it's a good thing nothing happened. And our boy thinks that, even though he was almost murdered, nothing bad happened in the end. But he doesn't understand why that guy is looking at him with that expression. He wonders if they realized he might have eaten too much, and no, he can't raise any suspicions. So now he's just going to pretend he doesn't know anything, and smile at them. And so he starts to smile at that old geezer. But the bishop wonders, what's with this brat? He's supposed to be dying, choking on his own blood. But instead, he's alive and well, and laughing in his face. This old man really has it out for a cute little baby man. And now we're shown a few days earlier at the headquarters of the Holy Faith, where the Pope was saying that whoever becomes the saint will gain possession of the entire Holy Empire. And that's a joke. That's why everyone is declaring that one of their children is the saint. These noble families are so annoying. And so the bishop tells him not to worry, because they're dealing with the other candidates, for the position of saint, and the Pope says that this is very good. And by the way, he just heard a very unpleasant rumor saying that House Exua has a candidate for saint. And he gets so pissed off he starts crushing the chalice, saying that the Exuas are the emperor's right hand. And the bishop, afraid of him, says there's nothing they can do about it. But then the Pope throws the chalice on the floor and says he'll probably be dead before he even gets there. But even so, he wants him to check the corpse, because the saint can only come from House Beret. And this is the cardinal and patriarch of House Beret, here Barrett. And so that bishop, watching the little baby, says that they told him the baby would be dead. So why is he alive? This can't be real. And then the emperor goes to touch the boy and says that he's very interesting. He has platinum blonde hair. The founder of his empire had the same hair color, and he asks if the bishop doesn't agree. And that old man tells him he can't say such blasphemous things. Meanwhile, Isaac realizes that he's the emperor, and this emperor says that he is closer to God than the current pope, and that he should be the final candidate for sainthood. This completely shocks our little baby skeleton, who thinks that this baby he reincarnated into is the saint. And so the old man starts thinking that the emperor is beginning to favor this boy. He can't allow that, and so he says to his majesty, "Please, allow me to inspect the child." And the emperor asks what the problem is. "But I must tell you, it's something strange. There's no way he can drink that much vegetable juice." This leaves the emperor a bit confused, asking what's so strange about a candidate for sainthood eating what monks eat. But our protagonist is thinking to himself, "Me, the demon king. How could I possibly be a candidate for sainthood?" But the bishop insists, saying that it's still strange, and asks to be allowed to inspect the child. But while they were arguing, our little baby lets out a burp. From his burp came some demonic energy that he couldn't fully digest, and he panics at the situation, realizing that the bishop saw it. This old man says that he just felt a demonic energy coming from this child, and giving a little smirk, he says that this is very strange, which made the boy very worried, because he realized, and the bishop says that this child might be a false candidate, posing as a human, and he needs an inquisitor to investigate him, and immediately. But at that moment, everyone in the room asks how he dares to speak of a candidate for sainthood in such a way. But the bishop asks the emperor not to worry, because the pope has already chosen the child from the house, Barrett, as the saint. This greatly surprises him. The emperor thinks about how he chose the child from his own house as a saint. That's so shameless. And our little boy, realizing this, understands that they are trying to get rid of him. Then Volode picks up our boy and says that he orders the priests to bring an inquisitor. But the emperor asks him to wait, because the house Exua is the closest ally of the Imperial family. And as the emperor, he suggests that he check on the child another day. So he says he understands, and that by the way he spoke with the Pope, and he said that he would only perform the investiture ceremony of the crown prince after the selection of the saint, which shocks the emperor greatly. He realizes that he is refusing to officially recognize his son unless he agrees with his choice. And so, the emperor asks if this is the intention of the Holy See. Meanwhile, our little boy, realizing this, understands that he's completely screwed. And to be honest, he doesn't want to be a candidate for sainthood. But if he keeps this up, his true identity might be revealed, and he could end up dead again. And so the Pope said that therefore, they should inspect the child right now using their sacred art of exorcism. But at that moment, our little baby grabs his bottle and says, "Oh, lovely. If that's what he wants, then that's what he'll get." And he injects his mana into the baby bottle and smacks that old geezer right in the face, which makes him lose a few teeth and start bleeding, while our Isaac just makes a satisfied face. He's so cute and happy. He says in his baby voice that this punk is a real son of a gun, very arrogant, and from now on he's going to play his little game. And after he smashes a bottle in that old man's face, the bishop thinks, how can a simple baby bottle hurt so much? But here's the thing. Everyone realizes that this is holy light, and this boy really must be a saint. But our Isaac thinks, no way. It can't be. He felt a bit of holy power in him, but this is truly shocking. And he starts to eject that holy power again and beat up the bishop in front of everyone, still speaking in a baby voice. What can this old geezer do now? While he's pummeling the old man, the bishop thinks that this is definitely mana and holy power. And seeing that scene, the emperor and the servants are completely shocked, while our Isaac thinks that he's going to make the bottle even stronger with magic and deal one last blow to him. All this while pretending to be an innocent baby. And after beating the old man senseless, he asks him what he thinks about it now. And so he stares at this shining baby bottle. He thinks that every time he uses mana, he also feels a bit of sacred power. And he knows that mana and sacred power are incompatible and normally can't be used together. And so, this must have something to do with that white-colored mana core. But then, the old man holds his baby bottle and says that he swears on all that is holy. This baby is a hero, and they must immediately use the sacred art of exorcism on him. Meanwhile, our little boy is thinking that this old geezer is a disgusting piece of shit. In a baby voice, he says that he didn't want to go this far, and he shoves his hand into the old man's clothes, and he pulls out what is basically a demonic hand. He thinks that the old man was hiding something very interesting in there, and seeing this, the old man is completely shocked. And it's said that this is the corpse of a high-ranking demon. In other words, it's a totem. It's an artifact that utilizes the characteristics of demons and eats the corpses of other demons to absorb their mana. And so the bishop thinks that he was carrying this totem with him, just in case he happened to run into any demons. He doesn't understand how this tiny baby knew about his totem. But then he looks at our little baby's face and realizes he's wearing a very sadistic little smile. Seeing that scene, he's completely shocked, because the baby simply threw that demonic hand on the ground, and in his head, he's thinking that he wants the old man to watch very carefully. This is all he's going to get for pissing him off. And as soon as that totem hits the ground, our Isaac thinks that these are the consequences of his actions, and he snaps his fingers, and from that totem a demon appears. And everyone wonders, where did this demonic monster come from? Meanwhile, our adorable Isaac just stands there thinking, so let this shitty bishop deal with it now. And after that demonic monster comes out of the totem, the emperor starts to scream, asking what Bishop Barrett is doing now and how he could let a demon enter the temple. He asks if he's gone completely insane. But the old man asks if he didn't see it, that it was the baby who threw the totem. But the emperor says that a totem is just an object used to seal a demonic beast. So how did it come back to life? And now he starts to shout, ordering all forces to protect the young master from this evil demonic beast. And the bishop, and as our Isaac is taken from that old man's hands, he just smiles at him, thinking that in the end he's screwed. And now he wants to see just how good the bishop is. But at that moment, that monster, the demonic one, just stares at our boy, saying that it wants to kill. It wants to kill the saint. This leaves Isaac completely lost. But just then, that demonic monster quickly charges towards Isaac, and all those guards jump in front to protect him. And our boy doesn't understand what's wrong. He saved this demon's life, so why is it trying to attack him now? But even so, the paladins should be able to defeat it and protect his life. But by the time he realizes it, one of the paladins has already been taken out, and seeing that scene, he wonders if he's truly a paladin. Meanwhile, that demonic monster keeps saying it wants to kill the saint and save the captured king. Our Isaac, seeing that scene, thinks that he should have subdued this demon first. No one would have noticed him using magic in a situation like this. And when that demon starts to charge at Isaac, he wonders why everyone is trying to kill him in this life. And this demon really has some nerve, trying to kill the one who just healed it. And he quickly activates his aura. And that demon, seeing the aura of the skull, Demon King becomes terrified. But as Isaac uses his demonic aura, his body starts to glow, as if he were using holy power. And quickly the room begins to be set ablaze by that light. Both the emperor and the guards were very surprised. And basically that light starts to erase the demon's existence. But upon realizing this, that demonic beast begins to flee. And after it escapes, everyone is safe. And the people realize that this was definitely holy power. And young Master Isaac just exorcised a great demon. And he's so incredible even at his age. And this is just as you'd expect from the young lord. And seeing that power in his hands, he wonders if this is really holy power. But he doesn't understand how he just did it, realizing that in the end he was out of mana. And he wonders if it could be that this body is transforming his mana into holy power. But he gets really pissed off, realizing that now he can't understand how he's going to be able to accumulate mana, since the Holy Empire is severely lacking in mana. But at that moment, back there, that old man orders them to release him, saying that this baby is a hero and he is using demonic power. And how dare he enter the Holy Empire? So, he tells His Majesty that he will prove it to him, and he will show who he really is, through an exorcism. But the Emperor says that's enough. And how dare he accuse the innocent candidate for sainthood? And not only that, but he also let a great demon run loose in front of the Imperial Knights. And he absolutely will not let this matter slide, even if he is from the Holy Faith. This leaves the bishop quite worried, thinking that if the Emperor suspects something, then he will soon find something about the infiltrator. And if that happens, the Holy Faith could also be in big trouble. And so, behind his back, he begins to activate a magic circle, knowing that even if he has to take responsibility for what might happen, he must save his family's life. And so, that's why he must kill the family's candidate for sainthood, activating the great holy beast right behind him. Noticing that beast coming for our little boy, Isaac just sighs and says that he really thinks he can kill him with something like that. But when he notices that beast coming right at him, he quickly remembers that he has no mana left. So he's totally screwed now. But at that moment, something appears right on that monster's neck, kind of freezing him. and a man enters the room and asks how he dared to lay hands on the direct bloodline of the Exua. And when they see that guy, they realize it's the Blue Faith, and they are the Knights of Exua. And this guy right at the front is the seventh son of the house, Exua Hilai Exua. And he starts pointing at the bishop, ordering him to be executed immediately. And seeing that scene, our little cutie wonders, what do you mean, Exua? Because he's heard that name before, but he can't remember. And then that Hilai asks where his manners are. Then basically, all the knights kneel before Isaac, saying that they greet the young master of House Exua. And this Hilai asks for forgiveness for being late, but our Isaac doesn't understand what's going on. And apparently he's the best of the Imperial Knights. Then Hilai says it's not much, but they brought a small gift for him. And our little baby wonders if he brought a gold bar or something like that. But when that knight pulls from his shirt, they brought a figurine of the Skeleton King who was about to be decapitated, which leaves our Isaac completely shocked. And they say that there's also a figurine of him burning to death, and even one of a nun crushing the Skeleton King. And he's completely lost amidst those figurines and starting to despair. He wonders how he's supposed to survive in a house with only crazy people like this. And after they show those little toys to the boy, he doesn't know how he's going to survive in this insane family. And he keeps thinking, Exua, Exua. Then he remembers that this generation's saint came to finish him off. But in reality, several saints from this family came to finish him off. The 45th saint of the Exua family, then the 61st saint of the Exua family. And they were all called Exua something. But now everything is messed up. Not only is he a candidate for sainthood, but he's also in a family of saints. And he doesn't understand what kind of mistakes he made in his past life. But while they were messing with Isaac, that bishop says that the Exuas are completely damned, and he knew they were all heretics. He asks where they brought that creature from. And seething with rage, he says he's going to find out that thing's identity, and to think he would betray a monster, just like him and the Exuas. They really went crazy. But the moment they started talking a lot of crap, he basically slits his throat, saying he should be grateful for the benevolence of Zexua, who spared his neck after he said such nonsense. And our boy just watches the scene, thinking that he is very useful. He slit his throat just because he insulted his family. They ask if he really has the confidence to take over the Holy See. But then the knights around them ask Isaac if he's scared, because he's just a little baby who should only hear good things. He remembers the blue chuas. They were really strong, and his subordinates would freak out every time they saw those little blue guys. He just asks them to stop playing with that skull. But coming up from behind him, the emperor says he owes this boy a debt, and he calls for Sir Hilai, and asks if he could tell the head of his house that the Imperial Palace wishes to raise the boy. But Hilari says to his majesty that his jokes are a bit much. Meanwhile, Isaac realizes that he has caught the attention of the Imperial Palace. But the emperor says that the sacred palace will have a boy as a target, both internally and externally, and he must know this. And while it's true that the Zexua are powerful, he asks if the current Blue Faith has what it takes to protect the child. And Hilari gets very serious when he says this. Isaac doesn't quite understand what they're talking about. Then the emperor says that the Pope specifically will disapprove of the child, and his hair color is the symbol of the ancestors of the sacred empire. And on top of that, the Skeleton King seems to be after him, and Isaac is completely lost, thinking, how can the Skeleton King be after me, if I am the Skeleton King? But the king over there says that he begs his majesty's pardon. This child is of the direct Zexua lineage, so he must be raised by the Zexua. And as for the Pope and the Skeleton King, the Zexua, we can take care of them. And if we manage to find the Skeleton King, again, the previous saint, Melissa, will be very happy. And this emperor says, I suppose she really would be. And then Hilari says, how could I leave this direct descendant of Saint Melissa in the Imperial Palace? And our Isaac asks himself, what do you mean, Melissa? But then he remembers Melissa. Who did he fight right before going to the divine realm? The crazy saint who was the hardest one to get rid of. And in the end, it was her. And so he's a saint candidate, born into the family of saints. On top of that, he's a direct descendant of Melissa. And he gets completely desperate, wondering why he had to be reborn this way. And it's said that the gods were losing to the Skeleton King even though they desperately wanted to win. And so they basically created several elite saints. They created a final weapon, with all their effort, an apple sent by the gods to destroy evil. The lion of the battlefield who imposes the holy light, the greatest light of the holy empire, and the highest-ranking knight. And due to the overwhelming power of the saints, people believed that the Skeleton King had met his end. However, the Skeleton King was completely relentless, except he had never killed a female saint. And in any case, it's not good for him if a saint dies. The divine power returns to the gods, so they can just send an upgraded version of the saints. And the last Saint Melissa was seriously strong. Then he realizes that this Melissa is his ancestor. And so Hilary, with a little smirk, says that a saint only lives for the destruction of the skeleton king. And Exua produces these saints, and I carry the will of the gods, and they are a proud family. And the family? Exua has the ability to protect this child. And the emperor, hearing this, just stays silent, while the knight behind him says that he is right. Several female saints were martyred by the skeleton king, but Prado gets really uncomfortable, realizing he didn't kill any of them. They continue, saying that the skeleton king once banished a saint to a labyrinth because he thought she wasn't good enough to fight. But Isaac thinks he just let her go, and it's not his fault, that she has such a bad sense of direction. And they say that 5 of them died from stress-related illnesses. Then Isaac thinks, what's that got to do with him? They should have just gone to the hospital. And then the king over there says that it's all okay. The child has already seen all the stories, and it doesn't matter to him if he's cursed. But our protagonist, completely pissed off, thinks that it's not okay for him at all. And this guy, Hilary, says that they are very grateful he was born, and they only want one thing from him, that he doesn't become like the terrible skeleton king when he grows up. This leaves our little baby boy completely shocked, thinking to his unknown parents that he's so sorry for being such a bad person. But this emperor asks Hilary to reconsider. It's been 150 years since the skeleton was sealed, and the protagonist starts thinking, if it's really been that long, then in that case, Melissa must have died a long time ago. And the emperor says that the demons have gotten stronger in the meantime, and the saint is a great asset for the Holy Empire to increase its power. So this boy is very important to the Imperial Palace as well. And besides, there isn't a saint in Exu currently, and it's already been a year since the saint gave birth to the boy who disappeared with his father. This left our little protagonist completely shocked, realizing that his mother was the saint. The king says that this might be true, but the matriarch is still alive, and the Exua can protect the boy. And Isaac thinks to himself that it's fine. They just need to stop with the surprises now. He can't be surprised by anything anymore, after finding out his mother is a saint. But then, he hears the emperor asking Hilary if Lady Melissa isn't currently away destroying the skeleton king's insubordinates. And Hilary says that she will return soon, and that the matriarch is also waiting for her grandson. This leaves our protagonist completely shocked, realizing that 200 years have already passed, yet she's still alive. And this emperor says it's going to take a while until she comes back, and he asks if the boy doesn't seem a little strange. But what they don't know is that he's thinking that if Melissa finds out he's the skeleton king, she'll finish him off on the spot. Other people would be fine, but Melissa is just too dangerous. And so he basically grabs the emperor's finger, babbling in his baby language as if to say, please take me with you. This gets the emperor very excited, and he asks Hilary, don't you see he wants to go to the Imperial Palace too? But Hilary says that he's just getting a little attached now because he saw him. But the emperor says that the Imperial Palace can provide many things for the young master, and the Exua might have experience producing female saints, but they have no experience raising a male saint. But the king there says that this child will become an exorcist knight, who will put an end to evil. And the Exua is a family that produces the best knights, exorcists, and he is the first saint. So the Imperial Palace has no experience either, and those two just keep fighting over the boy, almost tearing him in two. But our protagonist, seeing this, decides he wants to go to the Imperial Palace because he doesn't want to die when he sees Melissa. And he thinks that the light that reacts, the source of survival, that light has been with the Emperor from the very beginning. So that means his chances of survival are higher if he goes with the Emperor. And just like that, his body starts to glow, but he's completely surprised, not understanding what's happening. And now the scene changes to another location. That bishop says that the boy is innocent, and that thing used a human, and he is definitely a spawn of demons. But a hooded man says that divine power comes from the gods themselves, and then he asks if he's saying that the gods gave divine power to a demon. But the bishop says no, and how could he possibly confuse mana with divine power? Then this man says that the holy city calls this kind of talk blasphemy, as he cuts off the bishop's head. And then a guy behind him says that they will form an assassination squad again. But this man, who is the Pope, says there's no need, because the Emperor will want to take the child, and they will have countless opportunities in the Imperial Palace, and he just has to wait for them. Then the scene returns to our boy, still on the same day, thinking that he's now going to Exua in a very luxurious carriage, while the Pope and the others got screwed over. And so basically he remembers a few days ago when that light appeared, and Hilary was telling His Majesty that Exua is not a good place to raise a child, and they should consider that they are a house that guards the corpse cores of demons. And so our protagonist thinks that this is the origin of survival. And Hilary says that the most precious thing they have is the Demon King's only body, which leaves our protagonist completely shocked, asking what they mean they're guarding his body, and that they should have started with that from the beginning. And so basically, our little boy grabs Hillary's hand, saying in his baby talk that they have to go to Exua, which makes Hillary very embarrassed. So basically, he's really bored in the carriage. He thinks it's as if he gave up his life in the palace to go to the army, but he has no other choice. After all, this will really help him recover his old power. And the Skeleton King's body is one that he refined and accumulated a lot of mana in, to the point where he became capable of going against the gods. If he can get his old body back, ranked in spells will be nothing to him. And he thinks that the first time he saw the light of the origin of survival shine so brightly was on that day. So that means following his uncle to Exua will be much more beneficial for his survival. And so, that other knight in the carriage asks why the members of the Holy Faith are so worried about the young master. The king says it's because the gods gave a prophecy that the saint will be the child of God. This left Isaac completely shocked. And then the knight says that this means he will be the next pope. That's why House Bert was so desperate to give birth to a saint. Hearing this, our Isaac gets scared, thinking about the Pope, the most powerful cleric with rank 10 sacred spells. And he's basically the king of all clerics and paladins. He's an absolute being with power that rivals even the Holy Emperor of the Empire. So he thinks that House Barrett has been giving birth to the Pope for thousands of years. But now that the position of Pope will be taken by a saint, it makes sense for there to be such a commotion about it. This must be because the other houses are also trying to give birth to a saint. But just then their carriage is stopped, and when Hillary looks out the window, the man driving the carriage says that they've arrived at the duchy, but they've run into a problem. 3 guards tell them they're very sorry, but they cannot enter the duchy. This greatly surprises Hillary, who asks how they dare, and if they're saying they don't recognize the emblem of House Exua. But just then those knights say that of course they can't let them in, since they need to eliminate the child who inherited the saint's blood. At that moment, the 3 of them transform into demons, which greatly surprises the knights. And Isaac himself wonders, what kind of mess is this? And he is certain that he banished the demons, and they attacked the human territory. And he wonders if this is the work of the new demon king. And that's when a demon tells them to listen carefully. Their glorious king has ordered them to kill the saints. And then Isaac realizes it must have been an order from the new demon king. It's just that, at that moment, they say it was under the command of the great skeleton king, Lord Isaac, which makes our protagonist furious. Speaking in his baby talk, he's wondering when he ever ordered them to do that. And so, the 3 demons order them to hand over the child, and maybe the skeleton king will spare their lives. But to the surprise of the 3, the one in the middle is instantly electrocuted. And Relay, approaching them, asks how they could dare say such a thing in front of him, the exorcist of Zekwar. And he says their deaths will not be swift. And he tells them to listen carefully. In order to protect all the small things in this world, Zekwar will destroy all evil. And with that, all the knights assume a battle formation, declaring they will hunt them to the ends of hell, if they must. And Isaac, with a little smirk, says that that bastard of a skeleton king is forcing his subordinates to die, just so he can escape death himself. And so they basically engage in combat. At that moment, a knight grabs Isaac and runs out of the carriage, while Isaac doesn't understand what's happening or who is impersonating him. But upon entering the forest, that knight sits Isaac down in the bushes and tells him to wait, saying he'll be back soon, activating the protective barrier around him. And so Isaac thinks that even high-level demons wouldn't be able to break this barrier. And it's very impressive that nothing from the outside can get in, which also means that nothing from the inside can get out. So he thinks that he's going to activate the origin of survival, releasing his magic. And he asks it to hear his call, calling forth what is itself a living magic, Whisper, the observer. And basically this black shadow starts to approach our Isaac, and it starts to cry, saying that its great lord is alive. But Isaac says he knows it's been a while, and tells it to be quiet, or else they'll notice. And so Whisper says that it never imagined it would see him again. And our little baby says that he also thought it was all over last time. And he thinks that it's been a while since he's seen Whisper, and that it's a sapient detection magic. And he created it, so he wouldn't have to keep using mana detection constantly during his fights. But at some point it gained consciousness, on top of being really cute. And so Whisper says that his malice is strong, as always, and it congratulates him for mercilessly stealing a child's body. But it says that those divine bastards who dared to lay hands on its master, it won't forgive them for committing such an atrocity. But Isaac says that's enough and just asks it to search for enemies. And so Whisper begins enemy detection, and says that currently it can see within a 100-meter radius, and there are a total of 88 enemies, and they're all demons. But they won't even be able to lay a finger on him. And so Isaac thinks this is absurd, 88 of them, and he wonders if they're really trying to start a war. It's going to be a real problem if security in this territory increases, because that'll make it even harder for him to contact his subordinates. And at this rate, he'll have no choice but to deal with them personally before they're noticed by House Exua. And even if he has to use all the mana he's accumulated so far, he needs to finish them all off. But just then, Whisper says that the number of enemies has dropped to 51. The enemy forces are falling rapidly, and now there are only 31 enemies. This leaves Isaac completely surprised, realizing that in the end those blue knights are killing all the demons by activating a defensive formation. But just then the demons look back and see that their comrade has finally arrived. He asks him to work with them on this mission, helping them kill the saint today. But at that moment, that demon kills the other demon, which surprises many of the knights. And so Whisper says that there are no enemies left. However, it has detected a dark lithio and syncolite. Staring at the humans, he says that they dared to touch his king with their hands, so they must pay with their lives. This left our Isaac completely shocked, wondering what this guy's deal is. And that shadow says that his king, his first and only master model, how dare they imprison him inside the body of an inferior baby? And it's explained that out of gratitude for being freed, the milk of shadows develops a twisted attachment to Isaac. I will tell them that they shouldn't dare to even look him in the eyes, or he'll have to tear their eyes from their bodies. The knights wonder what this demon is saying. And that's when it's said that humans can't understand the demonic language, and that Whisper guy says this is a huge mess. Meanwhile, our little baby thinks that this guy has realized that he's the Skeleton King and had the guts to follow him all the way here. And so the knights prepare to fight that demon. And Isaac in the back starts waving his hands, speaking in baby talk, telling them not to mess with his food, because he is his source of concentrated mana. And the knight tells the young master, Isaac, to be patient, because they will solve this problem quickly. But then that elite says that his master has recognized him, and the reason for his existence has recognized him. This makes the knight really pissed off, because this demon's expression is very strange, and in the blink of an eye, that demon charges towards those humans, faking them out and going straight for Isaac. And Hilario, very worried, realizes that he's going for Isaac, and the demon asks how they dare imprison his master in this filthy ball, and Isaac thinks this is great. He managed to get his attention. He can't let his food escape his grasp, and so he asks that demon to break the barrier. And the demon says yes, and breaks the barrier right then and there, which surprises many of the knights. And at that moment, Isaac gives a little smile, saying that he did a great job. He takes that demon's hand and says that now to clean up the mess and get some rest, he's going to absorb that guy. And watching that scene, the demon wonders what its master just did. And to everyone's surprise, Isaac simply just turned the demon into a totem, staring back at them with these super cute eyes. And that knight starts tossing Isaac into the air and says that transforming a demon like that in an instant, he's truly incredible. And he used a sacred art, one that only saints and cardinals can use. At this, Hilai just stares at them and says that it certainly looks like a sacred art, the kind people use to make a totem. But for a child to be able to use a sacred art like this, he didn't feel any sacred power at all. But the knight says that people tend to shine brightest when they're in danger. That thing went straight for the young master. It sensed instinctively that the young master was a threat to its very existence, and it prioritized him. And so, the young master definitely has something waiting for him, and he's certain that he is the saint. And Hilai thinks that he's not wrong. The demons really did come for the child, and even if he isn't a saint, this child is definitely special. But he wonders, why did he have to be born a boy? Due to the Skeleton King's curse, the men of House Exua. But before he can finish his thought, that knight says he's made up his mind. As commander of the Blue Beast, he's going to protect the young master Isaac, the future of House Exua. This really surprises Hilary, and he gives a little smile and says that he understands, and it seems he was a fool. So why fear the Skeleton King's curse? This child will carry the Zekwar name. And now he picks Isaac up and says that they are going to his house with his uncle. There he will teach him various things, and that he truly has great potential to become a great paladin. While our little boy smiles, he thinks that he doesn't care about being a paladin. He just wants them to hand over his old body when they get home. And Hilary says that even if he is destined to have a short life, he will find a way to save him. This leaves our little boy not understanding a single thing. And then, the king over there says that his name will be known throughout the entire continent. But the baby, speaking in his baby language, wonders what's up with that scary thing he just said. And so the king says that now they will go home. And after a few days, they finally arrived at the mansion of Cal de Exua. And seeing that completely luxurious mansion, our little boy asks himself if they are really living this well by killing his demonic people. And all of this is very expensive. They're just damn bourgeois. He always had to save up desperately to feed his people. And so he whispers that the difference between this luxurious castle and his demonic castle is like heaven and hell. And even if they sold all their things, they still couldn't buy any of this. And a very pissed off Isaac just tells him to shut up. And this Hilary guy says that this is the Exua mansion, and it's the place of origin for exorcism on the continent. And he asks him to watch, because he's going to grow up just like those guys, as he sees those knights beating up the Skeleton King Scarecrow. And he just thinks about what these guys are teaching their children. But well, that doesn't matter. And when he joins the Holy Empire, he will turn the Empire into his puppet and transform it into the Isaac Empire. And Whisper says that even though he is the mighty Skeleton King, he asks if he's going to let the games of these children hurt his feelings. It really seems pathetic. But Isaac just tells him to shut up again and keep an eye on the surroundings. And Whisper says yes. And at that moment, Whisper manages to identify all the mana points in the mansion, which greatly surprises our boy, realizing that there are more than 10,000, and he's never seen so many mana cores like that. And then a knight says that they have arrived. And Hilary, getting down with Isaac in his arms, asks them to prepare his room, because Isaac is going to sleep with him. But at that moment, that butler apologizes to young Master Hilary, and says that they were ordered to escort young Master Isaac to the annex. And Hilary asks, what do you mean? The annex. The butler says that the fifth young master ordered that young master, Isaac, was never to enter the main building. And Hilario gets really pissed off, asking if he wants to send Isaac to that damn cursed place where people die. And so, Isaac realizes that these are feuds between families. He should have known. They left children alone outside. And so Hilario says that his older brother is doing things that are unnecessary. And Isaac thinks that's true, because why would he live in a place like an annex building? He could live in a gigantic mansion. But at that moment, Whisper says that the mana cores are in the annex, which leaves Isaac quite surprised. And Hilario asks the butler to stay out of it, because he's not going to leave his nephew in a ghost house. But Isaac just asks to go there. And Hilario tells him to go to his room, and every night, at bedtime, he'll tell him stories about how the saints beat up the Skeleton King. But as he was walking, someone appears in front of him and says that first he brings this dirty little worm home, and now he wants to cause a scene. And he ordered this child to be sent to the annex. And he says that he shows his face after so long, and the first thing he does is challenge his older brother. And this is the fifth son of the Joshua family, Gold Joshua. And Isaac just stares at him, thinking that this guy is a complete jerk. And so his older brother tells him to put that thing down and send him to the annex. But Hilario asks if he's being serious. This boy is a direct member of the Joshua family, and asks if he's really saying that, for him to live in the annex, which is used for banishments. The king over there orders him to leave, because he is going to perform the Skeleton King's exorcism ritual for him in his room. But all Isaac can think is that he just wants him to go to the annex now. But then that brother of his says that he brought something much worse home than the Skeleton King. And he even says it's a direct member of the family, which makes our protagonist furious, thinking that his brother really does want him to go to the annex. But this is just ridiculous. Is he a cleric or a bandit? But whatever. He just has to go to the annex now, so he can drain that mana core. And so the brother asks if Isaac really thinks that he doesn't know why he wants to put him in the annex. He says Isaac wants people to think he's a child who is cursed, to get him out of the line of succession. This greatly surprises our boy, who thinks that this is a really bad situation. He needs to drain this house of everything it has, become a saint, and walk the path to becoming a pope. And he needs all of this to get his revenge on all the gods. But his brother asks, what do you mean remove? He saw that demons appeared to capture him, so he's already cursed. But the knight behind him says that's not it, and that in fact young Master Isaac exorcised the demons. And the fact that the demons were coming after him proves that he is someone very important. But that very arrogant guy says he's relieved to hear that, and that they are really doing everything they can to cover for this wretched piece of trash. He just tells them to shut up, and if he really is a saint, then they should make him prove it. And so the wisp asks if they should show them your skills. How about meteor summoning? But Isaac just tells him to shut up. And this is that little guy who says that if he's a saint, how about he just goes to his family's symbol, the tree that the head of the house loves so much. And this is a divine tree that died after being imbued with demonic essence. And if he has what it takes to become a saint, then it'll be a piece of cake for him. But of course, that's if he really is a candidate to be a saint, as they say. Isaac finds himself thinking about Melissa, because she fought well, but her children, she couldn't manage to raise them at all. And he thinks about how her eldest son disappeared. And the fifth son is a complete bastard, but when he realizes looking at that tree, he asks Whisper if he didn't see it. And just like that, he grabs Whisper and tells him to get that thing for him. And he goes over and asks his brother if they haven't been able to restore the tree in years, then how would he dare ask that of a child who can't even understand what's coming out of his own mouth? But at that moment, they sense a power coming from behind them. And when they realize, the divine tree simply revived right in front of them. This really surprises that guy, who says that this tree didn't revive, even when they used sacred arts of healing and purification on it. So how did they manage that? And so Whisper says that he ate all that mana, just like he was told. And our boy just gives a little smile, saying that he did well. And so the knight says that the young master Hilary did something to that tree. Hilary says he didn't do anything. And then the knight says that maybe it was young master Isaac. And Isaac, in his baby voice, says that he wanted that mana too. But it's a shame. This kid, he asks if they'd like him to vomit it up for them, sir. And at that, the knights get really excited, realizing how incredible Isaac is. But that older brother gets furious, asking if they've lost their minds. No one in this house was able to cure that tree. So how could a child possibly do it? He says they must have helped him or something, but they don't even care about what he's saying, and just start tossing our boy up in the air. And he starts getting even more furious, clenching his fists, saying that Isaac must have done something. But Hilary asks what he's talking about. And that guy starts grabbing Hilary and asks how he obtained the saint's power, and why he's lying now. He says the brat did something. And Hilary, not understanding a thing, asks what he's talking about. His brother calls him a fraud and a traitor, while Prata thinks that now is not the time for demon hunting, and that Melissa needs to come back and get her children in order, because this house is about to collapse. But this older brother of his, he looks nothing like Melissa. Meanwhile, Hilary is practically Melissa in men's clothing. So Whisper says that maybe they're half-brothers. And just like that, Isaac realizes, thinking that he knew he'd noticed something. So that guy must look a bit more like his father. And so this older brother tells him to stop lying and asks if he really thinks he doesn't know that he brought it, so that he could make himself a candidate for sainthood. And how dare he do that, especially when the house already has a candidate? Isaac wonders. What do you mean another candidate is staying in this house? And who is this guy? And Whisper says that it seems like he's pretty calm, even knowing he'll have to compete with him. But Isaac actually asks him if he thinks the other candidate is really that strong. And Whisper says that makes sense. Then Riley asks, are you saying we should abandon him? He's your nephew, and your older brother's son, and he has the right to inherit your house. But that completely pissed off guy calls him an idiot, and says that his older brother is just a deserter who ran away from his house when it needed him most. The same brother who had this trash son and ran away. And with that, he gives a malicious little smile. He thinks this boy is still the son of the saint. And of course, a half-breed who was brought from the outside to become a saint. She's still a saint. But he asks, how can he be sure that this child has his blood? Sure, he looks just like her. And in fact, if she wants to, maybe she should come and give him more children. But at that moment, he gets a huge punch right in the face. And Riley is furious, asking if he really thought he would get away unscathed after saying so many horrible things. This leaves Isaac quite satisfied, thinking that brothers flourish by fighting one another. And then Riley starts beating up that older brother of his, while the silver-haired guy with this evil look on his face says that woman's house, he's going to destroy it completely. This leaves even Whisper quite scared, saying that, logically speaking, so the house doesn't fall into ruin. He's the one who will be ruined too. And now a few hours have passed, and our boy has finally entered the main mansion. But he's looking really grumpy, staring down all those old geezers, as he wonders how another boy could have been born, and what's the point of producing another boy? As he thinks that no one in this house is sane. How can they treat their eldest grandson like this? They start saying that when they raised that commoner to become a saint, the least she should have done was not give birth to a useless boy like him, and that she's not even fit to be a saint anyway. But then, that woman in the center tells them to shut up and says to Hilary that the affiliate family said they would raise him. And this is the second wife of Eli Exua, the leader of the Exua family, the current acting head of the house, Reina Exua. And she asks why he brought him to the main family's territory. And this little baby of ours thinks that she doesn't even bother to hide her disdain for him. So this was the woman who wanted to take him to the annex. That guy from before who got punched in the nose says that his mother is asking a question as the acting head of the house and asks why he isn't answering her properly. Hilary says that his father left an empty position then. And that woman says he just stepped out for a while. This talk about saint candidates has kept him very busy. And Hilary says that's a shame. He wanted to tell him that his eldest grandson, Isaac Exua, revived the divine tree that he loves so much. This surprises all the old geezers at once. And that guy says it was just a coincidence, and asks how a child could possibly revive anything, and that this is just the fruit of the prayers that the house of Exua has been making for all this time. And that girl beside him says that she also thinks the same way. And the head of the house struggled so much to solve that problem. How could a mere child possibly solve it? And the matriarch says that's exactly right. But there's no way to prove it. And the elders agree that's correct. It's a great blessing that the divine tree has been revived, but there's no way for them to prove it. But our guy here thinks that they must want proof. And so he holds out his hand in front of them. and to everyone's surprise, a magic crystal appears before them. He wants them to look closely, and they, completely shocked, start screaming that this is the divine tree's energy. And our little boy, with this super confident look on his face, says in his baby talk that they're all complete scumbags. He's the most foul-mouthed baby I've ever seen. Because of this, the elders say that it seems Isaac removed the mana corruption from the divine tree. But they argue among themselves. He was aware of the mana present in the divine tree, but are they really saying that a newborn dealt with it? And the woman beside him says that's the only explanation. He subdued the mana and clearly mastered it right in front of them. And the others say that, in fact, this is an art of exorcism that saved the divine tree. And it couldn't have been easy by any means. The tree could have died if they weren't more careful. And that's why the head of the family entrusted him with the purification to save it instead of exorcising it. And that older son is completely shocked, thinking that this is a load of bullshit. He can't believe they're really saying that that little lump of flesh could have powers like that. And so, Hillary says that Isaac followed his instincts and exorcised the mana in the divine tree. And our girl is over in the corner looking very confident, thinking, that's right, old man. And Hillary says that this baby isn't even off his bottle yet, and in just a few moments he's already managed to accomplish something that no one in his house Exua has managed in the 70 years before him. This makes that guy furious, and he starts banging on the table, telling the elders that they can't possibly believe such an absurd story. How could a baby perform exorcism arts? A baby who hasn't even said his first words yet. The world will make fun of House Exua if they allow such a ridiculous story to spread. Then he tells them to look at him. He doesn't even look like his older brother. I bet he doesn't even have Exua blood. He must be the son of some beggar on the street. But Hillary asks the elders to listen to his words. This child will one day become the saint. In fact, he could very well become the future pope. And our little girl gets very confident hearing this. And he holds him up in a clear reference to the Lion King, and says that one day he will kill the Skeleton King, which makes our boy really pissed off. And then, that woman in the center gives a shameless little smile, and says that Hillary is digging his own grave. And so she says that if they're so sure, they should test the boy. And she will request the use of the treasury of divine artifacts. And now the scene changes to the northwest of the empire, the Black Forest. And there's a guy there killing several monsters. And after he kills them, he says that it's a huge waste of time. Then someone appears behind him and greets the lord of the house. And he asks what the problem is. The knight says that the acting leader asked for permission to use the treasury of divine artifacts. But the head of the house says that, as he's said before, the divine prophetess cannot access it. However, the knight says that she didn't ask in the name of the divine prophetess, but rather because his grandson saved the divine tree. Therefore, the acting leader requested access to determine if the boy is truly the saint. This greatly surprises the man, who asks why there's a saint in his house. And this is the head of the house, Joshua Eli Joshua. And he says he refuses that the place will kill anyone other than the saint candidate. And he asks him to tell them not to start an unnecessary fight. And there can be no exceptions. But someone appears right beside him and tells them to just let them. And she asks if his name wasn't Isaac. And this is Melissa. And she said, who would have thought he would save the divine tree? He's truly a promising sprout. And if they open the treasury, why don't they just throw all the saint candidates in there? This greatly surprises the knight. But that knight asks, what do you mean another child from another house could take the treasury's greatest treasure home? And she says that she actually prefers it that way. And someone model, I really should do this. The greatest saint in history couldn't take him down. But with this, they'll be able to track the Skeleton King and kill him once and for all. And in fact, they should reward anyone who brings it. And so she asks them to spread the news. They will reward the child who brings back the greatest artifact, a treasure that not even the Pope could provide. And not only will they be given the saint's inheritance, which has been passed down for generations in House Exua, but she will also personally teach them her secret techniques. She gets very excited, saying she'll give everything to the child who succeeds. And so we're told that the treasury, where divine artifacts and secret techniques were kept for thousands of years, has been managed through the generations, and the saint was in charge of looking after it. And House Exua could, therefore, be seen as its owner. And since only children under the age of 10 could enter that place, the treasury was used as a place to perform the first birthday ritual for the saint candidates. This way they would predict their abilities, depending on the item the child brought back during the ritual. However, it was a very dangerous place, and even the saint candidates could easily die inside. And after years of death, loss after loss, the treasury was eventually sealed. And the one telling this story is Whisper. He asks his master if he'll be able to get the treasure that the saintess has been guarding and return safely. And our little baby asks why he's talking so much about it. Then Ismail asks if he's not excited about it, and Isaac says he is. They say the skeleton's body is in the treasury, but just then, another knight grabs Isaac by the arm and says that the Matriarch has opened the treasury to all the saint candidates, and Isaac wonders if it's really for all of them. He starts tossing Isaac into the sky and says that the children from all 5 great families will gather, and even the house of that despicable fellow will be there. But he's sure that young Master Isaac will win. Meanwhile, Isaac thinks that this is better. If multiple children enter the treasury, everyone's attention will be divided among them, and it'll be much easier to get his body back that way. And so, Hilary grabs him by the arm and tells him to be careful. The demons that were captured during the war are protecting the treasury. But our boy just gives him a confident look, thinking that it doesn't matter, everyone is rank 6 or lower, and as long as he uses Intimidate, he'll be fine. But he hears the king over there saying that the rank 8 demons are not such easy enemies. This really surprises our boy, who thinks, what rank 8 demon did they manage to capture? Because he's definitely going to get his butt kicked. And this here is another knight, who asks if the rank 9 dragon isn't the hardest one to deal with. But Hilary says that in terms of rank, that's true. This drives the ISP completely crazy, wondering why the hell they would put a dragon in an area where they perform the first birthday ritual for babies. And even so, his extensive knowledge about dragons should help him get past them. But when he realizes it, our Isaac is very nervous, thinking this sucks. Dragons are dangerous in a totally different way. And he asks Whisper if he knows that he used to swindle dragons frequently. And then Whisper asks how many he's talking about. But our boy thinks that he swindled many dragons, at least 70 of them. He thinks this is really bad. They have a great memory, and if they realize it's him there, it's going to be really bad. And so he thinks he has no other choice. The treasury is full of rank 8 demons and a rank 9 dragon, but he can only handle rank 6 enemies with his current abilities. And to defeat them, he needs to sneak into the annex where House Exua guards the spoils of war and steal all those mana cores. This baby is really so cute and mischievous. And now it's the next day, and our little boy is there chilling and reading a book. And by the way, it's the first time I've ever seen a baby reading a book. Then Whisper asks if his master is okay, and it looks like he's about to be exorcised. So Isaac thinks that, as soon as he could use holy power, he would learn the holy arts easily. But how should he control their minds, so they would teach him quickly? And so Whisper speaks. He must be crazy trying to use magic in the middle of the clergy, and asks if he wants it to be accused of being a demon. Destroy the entire Exu house. Isaac asks how he ended up like this, after 150 years. But he just says he can't understand anything, and it's just a theory. But then someone grabs him by the arm, and it's Hilary. He says that he's been through a lot today, and Isaac thinks that's right. At this age, he needs to sleep for about 16 hours, at this age. And when Hilary puts him in the crib, he uses his sacred recovery magic, which completely heals Isaac's body. He thinks that this sacred art is really good, and this is excellent. He should use some kind of sacred attack art, so that he can learn it next time. But Isp tells him to be quiet, because they'll have to go to another place after they leave, so he should pretend to be asleep for now. And Isaac says that's right, that building, they need to go there today. He basically pretends to be asleep, and the guys totally fall for his act, saying that Isaac is so cute, and is a truly adorable child. And as they're talking, Whisper says that he has a good family. But then he overhears the king, saying that the totem is dangerous, so he must take it. This really surprises Isaac. And Hilary says it's the first totem he's ever made, and asks him to keep it somewhere safe. But Isaac gets desperate, thinking that he has to get it back. They can't take it with them now, and they can't take it now. And he starts to cry desperately, saying that his totem, it wanted to suck out all of his mana. But after he leaves, he thinks, well, since it's come to this, he'll have to drain the mana in his mana core. And so he tells Whisper that they're going for it. Then Whisper asks if he plans on crawling all the way to the annex. But Isaac says he has a plan, and just asks him to open the door. But just as Whisper was opening the door, he says that his uncle locked it from the outside. He even placed a sacred art on it, which makes Isaac really pissed, and he asks him to break it. But while Isaac is banging on that door, thinking of some way to open it, so he can get out of there, someone opens the door right at that moment. And who is it? A boy holding Isaac's totem. But that little boy, very surprised, asks how a baby who can't even walk got there. And this is the son of Goel Exua, the candidate for saint of the Exua family, who is 5 years old, Shuri Exua. And then, our protagonist wonders if this thing is his rival, while that Shuri thinks, there's no way a little baby could have done this, something that not even a genius like him could do. And so, he starts showing off his power to Isaac, which really surprises our boy. And this Shuri says that he is going to become a saint, and asks how he dares to try to steal his position. But seeing a rattle over in the corner, our protagonist simply grabs it with his magic, and throws it right at Shuri's head, which is really surprising. He says in his baby talk that he's found his ride. And that boy then asks if he knows who he is, while our protagonist thinks that he looks exactly like that uncle, Dull, and this must be his son. He grabs his rattle and thinks that if he gathers sacred power to attack him, he deserves a beating. He starts beating Shuri with that rattle of his, while Whisper says that's a fine blow. This little baby of ours says that this arrogant child will become his ride. He starts beating that little boy severely, and after a good beating, the boy activates a barrier, calling him Little One, and asking if he was surprised, and he's the only person his age who can use rank 3 defensive sacred arts. And he tells him not to be so surprised. And with that, he activates the rank 3 offensive sacred art, Holy Light. This greatly surprises our little protagonist, seeing those balls of energy flying right in front of him, and he thinks that this is really good, and giving a little smile, he thanks him for the meal. And just like that, he activates a defensive barrier, which greatly surprises that kid, asking what kind of huge defensive sacred art this is. Meanwhile, our little brat thinks that his uncle didn't tell him how to use it, so he was very curious to test it out. And it seems he managed to learn it, and in his baby language, he thanks him for showing him how it's done. Seeing that, Shuri gets very surprised, saying it can't be. And our protagonist just points his little finger at that kid. Those energy balls go in his direction and start to attack him. And Whisper asks his master if that looks good, but if it's okay to kill a direct member of the family. But our little baby asks what he means by kill. None of them hit him, and the Klishura, terrified, starts screaming at the kid, saying he can't even land a hit, so he shouldn't try to scare him like that. And no matter what sacred arts he uses, he can't defeat a saint candidate like him. But just then he hears someone asking how he dares. And when he looks back, it's that demonic shadow asking how dare he attack its king and if he wishes to die. This leaves the kid trembling in fear, and as he cries, he doesn't understand what's happening there. Our little boy is sitting right on that demon's shoulder, speaking in its language. What are you doing now? And he just orders it to carry him to the annex, so he can steal the Exua house. And after that, in Shuri's thoughts, he says that his name is Shuri Exua, and he is the one destined to become a saint. He will escape this cursed family and become the Pope. But at least, that's what he thought. Because now he's carrying this little baby wherever he wants to go. And our little boy starts showing him the way, which made Shuri really pissed off, asking why he has to do this for him, and that he can't boss him around. But right next to him is that demon shadow, telling him to keep moving, or else he'll be split in half. This leaves the boy trembling with fear, thinking that now he just wants to focus on surviving first, all while he cries asking for someone to help him as he walks through the mansion, while our little boy points out the direction for him. And in his own way, he asks if the boy has a death wish, because he's not going the right way. But Shuri asks him where he wanted to go tonight. But then, as soon as he realizes the path they were on, he starts shaking in his boots, thinking that this is the second annex of the Enchwar mansion, the so-called ghost house. And so Shuri wonders why this crazy kid dragged him here. The head of the family said that this place was off limits because of all those deaths. But meanwhile, the Wisp is smiling at our boy, saying that there are a few dozen mana cores inside. This mana would take decades of intense training to obtain, and so our little baby orders him to go forward, calling him his ride. Shuri asks if he really wants to go in, but that shadow by his side tells him to shut up and do as he's told. And so Shuri, terrified, starts entering the house. And while he's completely freaked out, our little boy says that the inside is much messier than he thought it would be. But then he notices something as he looks at the doors, and the Wisp says that the entire building is sealed. All of those doors have a barrier spell on them. And this Wisp says that this sucks, while Shuri says that they should go back now because all the doors are locked anyway. But our little boy just starts pulling his hair, which really scares the man, who asks, what is it now? And while he tells the boy not to pull his hair, they stare at 3 pictures. And so he says that these are the former heads of the clan, and Isaac is just staring at them. Juro asks if he's planning to become the head of the clan, but tells him not to even think about it, because he is going to be the next leader. But while he was saying this, our little boy simply took his rattle and threw it at those paintings, which left Juro completely shocked and scared, saying that those are the paintings of his ancestors, and he just broke all of them. He's a complete lunatic. And yeah, it was Zay, who said that it looks like there's no longer a spell barrier on the paintings, and so Isaac and he get really excited, saying that the barrier has been broken. With that, he jumps off of Shuri, and the boy asks where he's going. But our little guy starts rolling through the middle of the house, and Shuri says he's a complete psychopath, and that he can't just be wandering around freely like that. And then our little baby opens one of the doors and sees that he's arrived where he wanted to be, a place with tons of mana cores, and where he can become much more powerful. And then he asks Whiskey to close the doors. But in the meantime, Shuri comes running in his direction, asking what he's doing in there. And Isaac just looks back at him, thinking how could he possibly know? And so Shuri starts screaming that he's a demon, child, and now alone inside the room, Isaac thinks that it's time to begin. He starts to absorb all those mana cores, while Shuri starts screaming at him to get out of there, saying that he's going to tell the adults that he's in there all alone. But then someone appears behind him. When he realizes who it is, he sees Hilario and the Knights, asking what Shuri is doing there. And so Shuri starts to say that it's a good thing they arrived, and that it was that monster Isaac who brought him here. But that old lady asks what he means by that. She says they saw him entering the annex, and she asks if he brought Isaac with him. But Shuri, trembling in fear, doesn't know how to answer that. So she asks him if he has any idea that people saw him carrying Isaac all the way here. And they even found traces of sacred art in Isaac's room. And everyone thinks that he really dragged him here by force. And she asks if this wasn't his fault. But Shuri says that, well, yes, he did use a sacred art attack, and he also carried him here. But it was all because Isaac wanted him to. But then the king grabs his shoulder and tells him he's crossed a line. He says he understands how Shuri feels, but to torment a little baby like this is just wrong. And now he asks Shuri where he locked Isaac up. Shuri, crying in fear, says he didn't lock him up, and that Isaac locked himself inside that room. So Hilario goes to the door and asks if Isaac is in there. The Knights wonder if Shuri locked the door. But then Hilario opens the door and sees our Isaac, crying his eyes out in fear, pretending, of course. And so the lady asks if Isaac is all right, saying the child looks really scared, which leaves Shuri completely stunned. This throws Shuri into a panic, and Hilario, hugging Isaac, says he's just glad that he's okay. He seems to be in complete shock now, and he looks at Shuri with a very serious expression and says that he should be ashamed of himself. But Shuri says it wasn't him, and he swears on everything. But this little baby of ours says in his baby language that he was a complete sucker and thanks him for the meal, smiling at him with that sadistic face. At this, Shuri starts to panic, calling him a demon. And at the same time, I don't understand why he's doing this. But while he's over there getting scolded, Isaac just thinks that there was more than he expected. He obtained a century's worth of mana in just one day. And so with this much mana, he can use that plan, smiling with that evil face, while hiding right on Hilai's shoulder. And now inside the main house, in Isaac's room, our little guy looks up and notices that Hilai has arrived, saying there's someone he needs to introduce to him. And he says that this is Ashley, the person who will take care of him from now on. And so Ashley introduces herself, saying she is a paladin of Exua. And so she kneels before him and says she will serve him until her last breath, calling him young Master Isaac. And our little boy realizes that they're kind of putting a watch on him because of what he did the other day. And so he starts pointing at her and saying in his baby language that he doesn't need her and tells her to get lost. The two of them are quite surprised by his reaction. Then Ashley gets closer to our little chubby guy and asks Master Hilai if she can pinch this little child's cheeks, or leaves the protagonist completely confused. And so Hilai says he has something else to give him, and says that this is a gift from his uncle. And the protagonist, very surprised by this stinky ring, wonders if he found it on the ground. But the Wisp says he heard that the Zoo family's fortune took a big hit, but it's more serious than he thought. But when Ashley sees that ring, she gets really surprised, saying that it's the saint's treasure, which really surprises our boy. And so Hilari, stroking him, says that he made the elders give it to him. And the protagonist, very surprised, thinks that it's the real deal then. The ring that the saint used when she fought, an elder ring that contains a small miracle from the gods. He starts to feel the ring's power and thinks that it has an unbelievable amount of holy power. And in his current state, he can only use it once or twice. But there's a way to fix that. But then he looks ahead and also thinks, what's that creepy uncle doing here? He's staring at him with a really irritated look on his face. And so he gets closer and calls him little nephew. Isaac, making this very fake happy face, says that he's so adorable, no matter how many times he sees him, and asks if he's gotten used to the house yet. This really surprises our boy and the Wisp, and he, talking like he's a baby, says that this is so disgusting. Meanwhile, they wonder, what kind of scheme is he trying to pull now? And his uncle thinks that he broke the blessing device in the treasury so that he couldn't receive the blessing. But he never imagined that they would give him a treasure from the saint to him. And this is reminiscent of the elder talking with Hilary, saying that since Isaac couldn't receive a blessing, he needed to receive this for them to be fair. This greatly surprised his uncle, telling them to give that ring to his son instead of that brat. But the elder says that Shuri has already received a blessing from the divine prophet, and he can't be so greedy. Thinking about this, his uncle got furious, because they had ruined his plan to pretend to donate it and then steal it for himself. But he just got it without even knowing what it is. And so, he told Hilary that he should give a gift that's appropriate for a child, not this piece of trash. This makes Hilary really pissed off, asking how he could say that about an item from the saint. But he said that Isaac is his precious nephew, and he can't just give him a piece of junk that he won't even be able to use. And then he takes out another ring, a brilliant ring, and he says that this is an item that has received countless blessings from the divine prophet, and that he can put that in his treasury, that it will be much more useful to him. Not even Hilary could get something like this, which makes Hilary very uncomfortable. And as this happens, our girl reaches for that ring, and her uncle says that's it. He seems to like it and tells him to leave that old ring for him. But in that moment, he gets a hard slap right across the face, and Zay grabs that box and tells him to take this filthy thing that reeks of the Pope, with him throwing that ring box high into the sky, saying that the dogs should eat her. And when they notice the ring box had fallen into the lake behind them, she starts thinking that the ring seems to be thousands of times more precious than her gift. But in the end, her nephew chose her ring, and he picks Isaac up in his arms and says he'll give him better things in the future. And Ashley says that was impressive. While the uncle, Goal, and the other guys search for the ring in the lake because it's very expensive. And this little boy of ours thinks that he used magic to make the ring extremely heavy. They're never going to be able to find it. And Whisper says that he was very impressive and that he's truly determined to never touch the belongings of a rat. So the fact he'll do it for Isaac, retrieving it tonight, really surprises Whisper. And Zack asks if he wants him to go in his place, but Whisper says yes. He'll get it later himself. And our boy thinks that if he sells it, it'll be worth a lot of money. Meanwhile, his uncle is desperate because he lost a very expensive ring. And now in his office, he starts cursing the little baby. He asks the man in front of him if he knows how much that thing costs, but the man said it's okay. It's not like he could use that ring anyway. It serves him right, really. And it's an item that's good for someone who can't even use sacred arts, but he has no way to activate it, since it can only be activated by absorbing the sacred power, equivalent to that of 20 people. And hearing this, he wonders if they don't have a few 10 people on his first birthday, thinking that he'll love something nice for his birthday. And now the next day, it's the day of Isaac's first birthday, and there are lots and lots of people celebrating his party. Even though being a baby, he doesn't understand a thing. I mean, in this case, he actually does understand. And so Ashley says that this is really incredible. There are 148 candidates for sainthood, and 4,000 servants and aristocrats. And it seems that all the ducal houses and dozens of Marquess houses came too. And she saw that the other countries sent their candidates for sainthood. She asks if that isn't incredible. Meanwhile, Prada thinks that they say saints are sent from heaven, but those gods got so lazy that they just started tossing them around everywhere. And Esper says that this is definitely something they would do. Hilary then said that this is kind of unexpected. He thought everyone would assume it was a trap and wouldn't come. But just then, someone opens the door and says there's no way they'd think that. And this smiling guy says to Hilary that it's been a while. And this is Count Simon Aegis, the leader of the Empire's 3 largest merchant guilds, who is a childhood friend of Hilary's. And Hilary asks what Simon is doing there. And his friend says that all the families of the Empire are trembling with excitement for this event. And of course he would come. And people found out that the weaklings from Exua were going to attend. So everyone came, thinking there's no way it could be a trap. And the Matriarch of Zeuxis put that up as the prize. And really they couldn't possibly miss it. Not even the Pope's house will be able to resist. And our boy wonders, what kind of thing is he talking about? But Relay asks what he's saying. And there's no way the Pope's house would come, but his friend says they will. Those stuck-up nobles would never come to Zeuxis. And they say that everyone except the Barrett house are peasants and hate being around people. Relay tells him to lower his voice, but his friend asks why. The Zeuxis are their godchildren, and the Pope's family isn't going to interfere. But Relay still tells him to be careful with his words. Except on the other side of the door, someone starts opening it, walking in and saying that there is nothing more dangerous than a vulgar friend. And when the 3 of them realize it, the Pope is standing right in front of them, saying that it seems the old proverbs are never wrong. And Relay, completely surprised, asks why Cardinal Bert is there. And so the Pope just stares at him and says that the weak boy from Zeuxis is having his first birthday. And he prays that he'll manage to bring something from the treasury and not embarrass himself. And he was very curious to see the child from Zeuxis, the one they claim is a candidate for sainthood, but he couldn't find the boy. And Stella, looking very worried, just hides our little boy. And so the Pope, who doesn't even look like the Pope with that dark aura, says that this is very good. This is a good opportunity. And he prays that Zeuxis' candidate for sainthood elevate the family's name. And Riley wonders if they ended up falling into a trap set by Santa Fe. And he thought it was strange that the number of candidates increased from 25 to 148 in the last week, and there's no other explanation. Santa Fe must have ignored all the medical records of the team-fit candidates, and everyone wants their children to be saint candidates. If these children are placed in the treasury, they would quickly get rid of the weakest candidate, and they can use this chaos to execute a plan, a sinister one. So this means Isaac is in danger. Our protector couldn't care less, and just look at him picking his nose. And so it is said that the boys born in Zu-A, besides their exceptional appearances and their families' reputations, are useless. But for those who want to possess Zu-A's superior DNA, and those who desire the favor of House Papao and hate the House of Saints, a boy from Zu-A is tempting prey. Mess with a boy from Zu-A a little. He doesn't have to die. Just become incapable of doing anything. And mix drugs into his water and use a sacred poison. Show the child of Zu-A the cold reality of the world. Make him a laughingstock in front of everyone. And make it clear that the children of Zu-A can never become a saint. Show the whole world this reality. But to everyone's surprise, our boy is drinking all those vials of poison from the sacred, and on top of that saying it's very good. And seeing that scene, the punks are really surprised, wondering why he drank so many of them. And he starts to throw those flasks on the others' heads, and tells them to bring more, because this simple poison can't do anything to him. And as he shakes the bottle, they say that he's really scary. Wasn't that supposed to give you diarrhea? And how many flasks did he drink? Shuri wonders why he keeps drinking poisoned beverages, and he asks him not to tarnish Zechua's name. A candidate for sainthood can't even notice the water is drugged, and so he takes the flask from our boy and tells him to stop drinking that, asking if he's possessed. He gives him another bottle, but our Isaac throws it right in Shuri's face, saying that this one doesn't have poison. He goes to grab another kid's leg, asking for the poison he has. This leaves the kid very surprised, saying that this is his sacred poison. The girl next to him asks if he's crazy, because if he drinks that, he'll die. But to everyone's surprise, our boy jumps on top of him, telling him to give it to him now, and he starts beating the kid up. While the kids around them think he's actually resistant to poisons. They decided that if you train your sacred power, you can naturally detoxify yourself from sacred poisons. And the others also wonder if he's testing poisons because he thinks it's dangerous for others. But Junior just wonders what they're talking about, because that kid would surely never do that. But then a surprise appears. Right beside him, a little boy shows up, saying that the child is therefore sacrificing himself, isn't he? Which leaves Junior completely surprised, thinking that this is Kina Bert, and wondering why he is there, since he's from House Papao, and he's basically the Pope's direct grandson. These kids around here don't understand what Bert is doing there, and why the papal house is in the treasury of holiness. And they say that in the end, this whole thing is a drag, because he's definitely going to win. But our main character, he thinks, so this is the guy. The one who was chosen internally to be the saint. But he wonders if the Bert family can produce hair that's pure pink like this. Because no matter how much he thinks about it, all the popes had dirty brown hair and all that, which you can't say isn't strange. The papal house is in the treasury of holiness, since the pope is the leader of all the clergy. And because of that, the treasury of holiness is the property of the papal house. This really surprises Chori, and the kid keeps talking, so he's here to claim his things by right. And he asks the others if that's really so strange. Meanwhile, our boy thinks that he, talking like that, really does seem like someone from the papal house. But this boy really is a monster, considering his sacred power. It has already surpassed the level of a bishop, and he thinks that's why he's the candidate. Number 0, to be a saint. And so, Quina approaches and asks the others, are you trying to make an amphitryon feel ashamed? And you're really candidates to be saints. And what do you gain by terrorizing a single child? There's no way this child can control an immunity. To poison it must be because of the power of holiness, protecting him. And that twisted kid doesn't even care, realizing that stupidity runs in the blood. And so, Bert says that this poor child doesn't need to worry, because he's going to heal him. And the kids around them realize that he's actually really powerful, and must be at least rank 5, since he can cure poison. And the silver-haired boy thinks that in the end, he just wants to use him to show off his powers. It's pretty smart, but he doesn't like it, landing a huge slap right across Quina's face, which surprises everyone. And the kid behind him notices the sacred power has vanished. And Quina, completely surprised, looks at our boy and doesn't understand why his sacred power was interrupted. There's no way this kid could be stronger than him. And so he glares at Isaac and gets really pissed off, thinking he's just some trash from Zekwar. But the prodigy, filled with rage, asks if he really thinks he can look at him like that. But just as he's about to attack him, to everyone's surprise, Shuri stops him, telling him not to do it. And the onlookers wonder if he really just hit the person who was trying to cure him of the poison. And they wonder if a kid from Exua can really go against House Papao. And if he thinks he can protect that little kid. But in Shuri's mind, he knows he's not trying to protect Isaac, but Quina, beret from getting several bottles smashed over his head. And so the Pope's grandson says that it's all right. He was just surprised. After all, he's still just a baby. And waving goodbye, he says he wishes them all luck, especially the little kids from Exua. And he asks if they shouldn't go get some little toys to save face for their house, since the greatest treasure is his anyway. Why the Exua never got close to the Skeleton King's body, which really surprises our boy. and Shuri says that he's really annoying and asks why he even came here in the first place. But to his surprise, our boy grabs him and asks, "What did you say about the Skeleton King's body?" But Shuri doesn't even understand what he's saying, because he's talking like a little baby. But even so, he said that the Matriarch told them that whoever brings back the Skeleton King's body will get a special technique. This leaves our protagonist completely shocked, thinking that in the end, Melissa used his Skeleton King body to start a little game for a bunch of kids. And now, after drinking several bottles of that poison, the protagonist thinks about how he spent dozens of years accumulating mana throughout his entire body to reach rank 10. It would be child's play if he could get his hands on that. But how is he supposed to sneak his way to his own body when all of those kids are aiming for it? But whatever, he just has to defeat anyone who gets in his way. Just then one of the elders appears and tells them to gather around so they won't have to leave anytime soon. He says they must listen carefully. The Texturaria is a sacred place and the previous saint, blah 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 blah. He starts explaining a bunch of things here, and so the protagonist thinks that he's really about to start some long-winded story. But he turns around and says he's going on ahead. But Shuri asks where he's going. But to his surprise, our prota channels magic into his feet and starts to crawl at a super fast speed, which surprises everyone. Meanwhile, he's happily crawling way up ahead at high speed, thinking that this is his chance to put into practice the martial arts he learned. But that elder tells Isaac not to go that way, because that area is off limits. And if he goes down that path, the traps will be activated throughout the entire treasury. This leaves the boys completely shocked. They start running to get Isaac out of there. And now, over at the Shua household, in the mansion's ballroom, Ashley says she hopes the young master is all right, and Hilary just stays silent. But in front of them, there's something like a magic screen that allows them to see what's happening inside the treasury, and the guy controlling it says he will report to everyone what is happening with the children. He says that now, the doors to the main chamber have been opened, and the candidates are entering. And currently in third place is Amos, and that friend of Hilary's says that's his son. In second place is Shuri Shua, which leaves the guy very surprised. But in the end, he says he's proud of his son regardless. And in the very first place so far is Isaac Shua, which really surprises Ashley and Hilary, seeing that the kid is crawling at an extremely fast speed that no elder can catch up to. And the old man is really struggling from running so much, saying that if he keeps going like that, he's going to activate the traps. But to his surprise, he steps on one of them and gets electrocuted in front of everyone. And everyone has to dodge the traps and run to get Isaac out of there. Even Shuri calls him a lunatic and asks why he's causing all this chaos. And the treasury's challenges were already hard enough, but now they have to dodge traps at every turn. But at that moment, our boy stops and says that this must be the door to the second room. But Shuri yells that it's the wrong way, and Whisper says he did a good job. And thanks to all the mana cores he's absorbed, he's going to rank up too. Isaac says that's great. He can do all the hard work from now on, and tells him to go and get that brat. And while they're talking, one of the boys says they didn't know it would be this hard. But one of the kids notices and doesn't get why he's like that. They think his house must have done something to give him an advantage, and that's really unfair. But Shuri thinks that's not it. He's not flying on his own. Then he starts pulling Shuri toward Isaac, and Whisper says that he's caught his informant. A furious Shuri demands he stop that. He passed through the first layer, the selection test somehow. But from the second chamber onward, he could die if he's not careful. This was designed to teach the saints how to overcome fear and choose the right path. But our little guy just activates his power and gives Shuri a powerful shock, thinking he's really noisy. He says in his baby talk that he doesn't need him, spouting so much crap. He can just explain what happens in the second chamber. And this Jur guy says that when he enters the second layer, he cannot attack the enemies no matter what happens. And that's a rule. He must never attack them. And our little boy wonders, what kind of bullshit is this? If they're enemies, why can't he attack them? Jur says this is the only way to pass to the second layer. And no matter what comes out, he just has to wait 3 minutes until they disappear. And he needs to confirm if he understood, or they'll both be in deep trouble. And the silver-haired guy thinks this test is truly pathetic. So he turns and says, all right. This seems as easy as stealing candy from a baby. All he has to do is not attack, and just wait for 3 minutes. That's really nothing. And he directs his power towards that door. And so the door says, welcome to the challenge of the Chamber of Tranquility. Patience is a virtue, and it brings cold and precise reasoning. It asks him not to be shaken and to maintain his tranquility. And seeing that scene, our little baby looks so cute. And now the scene changes to that kid, the Pope's grandson, and his friends. One asks if it's really going to be okay, because they're in last place. But Kina says there's no reason for them to face the danger first. They can let the meat shields clear the path for them. And setting that aside, he asks if he's forgotten that a rank 8 demon guards the entrance to the second chamber. and he tells them to look over there. And seeing that there's a huge flash of light right in front of them, and Kina says that the test has just begun, and so the door starts to open, and our boy thinks, what the hell is this? Staring right in front of him is one of those gods, sending him a message that he must patiently wait for the light. And if he can't, he will die. But surprisingly, our boy lands a punch right on his face, calling him a scumbag. This really surprises Shuri, who thinks that he had said he would wait for 3 minutes, but he couldn't do it. And that really sucks. But our boy, completely pissed off, asks how he was supposed to hold back when the one who appeared before him was one of those crappy gods. And so the whisper says that he managed to hold out for 3 seconds, and that was truly surprising. And so the door opens, announcing that he has failed for not being patient. And because he wasn't patient, he must face the fury of divine punishment. And just like that, a gigantic golem appears before them. And Shuri says he warned them that they're all going to die. But our boy activates a power in his hand and blasts it right into the chest of that golem, which leaves Shuri completely shocked, wondering, what the hell is this? And the golem's body was completely destroyed, with a hole right through the middle. And our boy, absolutely furious, asks what his problem is. And now after destroying that golem, our boy thinks this is a rank 8, and he wonders if they're messing with him, because this golem was made by his subordinate, one of the 14 elite demons, the strongest subordinates. He trained as the Skeleton King, and this is the creation of one of them. He doesn't understand why it's working underneath Exua's house, or if it has something to do with his body being there, and he definitely needs to know more about this. But Shoro, staring, asks him where he's going. But to the surprise of both of them, those other kids say that, to think Exua's boys would be so useful, and he told the others that these guys would clear the path for them. And this kid is Nigel Sepet, of the Red Faith from the 5 great houses, the House of Cal Sepet, and so he thanks them. He thanks them for taking care of the gatekeeper for them. And now he tells them to get out, because they're the ones who are going into the second chamber first, and the people around them wonder if they don't know how much they suffered because of that child. That's right. He bets they went in first to set up a bunch of traps. This Isaac thinks that there really are still a lot of survivors, and that Sepet guy said he didn't know Exua's house would be so cowardly. And he bets the kid is with Shoro. But Shoro asks what he means by, he's with this boy, and he says he's really not working for him. But that Sepet guy stares at our little boy and asks if they also saw this child, avoiding the traps. How else would that make sense? And so he says that he must have an artifact protecting him, looking at the ring right on our boy's neck. And he says it must have something to do with that ring. And he tells everyone to look. With that ring, they'll be able to avoid all those traps. But Shuri thinks this is really, really bad. And why is he so calm about this? He looks really suspicious now, because he would never let something be stolen from him, without even putting up a fight. And this is that kid who's walking away and says that he doesn't need them to come with him, and he tells them to stay out of it. The Skeleton King's corpse, something that not even the ancient saints were able to recover, will belong to House Sepet of the Red Faith, and he, Nigel Sepet, will get it back. But just as he takes the step forward, he falls into a trap and an explosion goes off right in their faces, and they start screaming that it was a trap, while Shuri thinks that Isaac, that brat, really tricked them all on purpose. And so, after the kids were all defeated, Shuri is carrying our boy and the pre-workout around. He thinks that all those mines and similar traps in the second chamber have now been disabled. But anyway, why are there still people following them? And so, the people in the back say that he definitely has divine energy. And he's from the House of Holiness after all. And that Miguel was an idiot. That ring just seemed like an antique. And that's right. There's no way someone from House Exua could be such a coward. Meanwhile, he says that they all learned about efficient packing from their master. And he's really incredible. And Shuri is thinking they should run, because the monster breathing down his neck is more terrifying than any other demon. But to their surprise, someone approaches and says that there really is a saint among them, and he believes it would be someone like him. And he says it's good to meet the youngest lord of House Exua, and he is Paris Julius, the second prince of the Julius kingdom. I noticed another conversation, that this Julius is from the Alestadarella kingdom, and he heard that their prince received a divine blessing. And the silver-haired guy thinks that in the end, this child might actually be useful. And so Shuri tells Isaac that they've arrived at the gate of the third chamber. And so the entity says they are welcome to the third chamber, the chamber of ramification. And those statues ask them to demonstrate their courage and determination. And the professor nearby says that in the end, they were right to follow Isaac instead of Nigel, because the skeleton's corpse belongs to them. And so that statue says the test is simple. They must defeat them and claim their glory. And he just stares at them, wondering if this guardian could be what he thinks it is. And he realizes he hit the bullseye. And this is actually going to be fun. And so he stands on top of Shuri. And Isaac kind of talks to Shuri, and Shuri thinks that it's true. The guardian is lying. In the first chamber of selection, Isaac ran ahead without a care. And in the second chamber, Isaac didn't hold back at all in it. And in the third chamber, ramification is a hint. They must do what they did in the first and second chambers. They must not attack them, and Isaac points at them, telling them to get out of there. But Shuri wonders why he's helping them, and he thinks that he really believes he's the devil, but he still has the blood of Exua inside him, which is the blood of the holy house, even if it's weak. And even though it's weak, he must have inherited a bit of the virtue of holiness. And that's it. He judged him wrong this whole time. But to his surprise, our boy charges up an energy ball right in his hand and smacks it right into the face of that statue, which leaves Shuri completely surprised. And then the statue says that he failed the test, immediately attacking all of those boys. And they all fall to the ground completely defeated, screaming for someone to save them. And Shuri wonders if this kid is a complete bastard. And our boy, seeing all that, thinks it's a truly spectacular sight. And these statues say that they were fools, the holy ones. They shouldn't trust the words of others so easily. And Isaac, seeing this, realizes that these are puppets made of magic, from the 14 elite demons, the lying doll. And so he tells those lying dolls to teach these children the bitterness of life, which makes Shuri completely uncomfortable. And in the middle of that explosion, the boys wonder where the children of Exua went, but right behind them are our little guy and Shuri, hidden, using the 6th rank sacred art, invisibility. Our kid thinks that this is the blessing his uncle gave them to use in emergencies, and he used it at a very good time. But back there is that other little boy, who's a prince, thanking Isaac. He can also turn invisible. But Isaac in his baby language just says whatever, and tells him to take it, giving him a saint's ring. And so, the prince asks if this is because he wasn't able to fight against the demons, and he thanks him, saying he won't forget this. He says he'll tell the king about it, but at that moment, his power starts getting sucked into that ring. This greatly surprises Shuri, and the expert Isaac says that of course, his master would never willingly give something to someone. And Isaac says that the prince has the greatest sacred power there, and he's going to take all that power for himself, while Shuri wonders where his uncle found this monster. And as the children are fighting, they start to group up to fight together. But those puppets begin to advance on them, telling them to accept their punishment. And with that, a boy in the back starts to charge up his power to attack that puppet. But in that moment, when he uses his power, he falls to the ground very weak. This is a huge surprise, and another person asks what just happened. But when he realizes it, that ring is right next to him, sucking away all his sacred energy. This surprises many of the puppets, who don't understand what's happening there, and wonder where the others are, to beg for their lives. And so Whisper says that they should absorb the sacred power from everyone in this place. And the protagonist says, of course. So now they go to the other side, and Whisper is carrying his ring. He gets closer to the kids, and starts sucking their sacred energy. And so, the silver-haired guy thinks that the puppet stopped attacking as soon as they started getting really weak, and it's better for him to take all the sacred power and let them pass out than for them to get hurt. And so, Whisper says he's already finished taking all that power. But to his surprise, that puppet gets electrocuted, and Whisper falls to the ground, not understanding what's happening. But then that Kinnevert says that he finally found him, Isaac Exua. And so the silver-haired guy thinks that he was just wondering where this kid was, but he was right there all along. And this Choro wonders if he knew that he was called a genius. But this kid is a complete monster, because being able to summon a sacred spirit at this age, that's going way too far. Then Bert asks if he's surprised, because there was someone else who could defeat a demon. And he asks if he led the children into a trap, just like he did in the first chamber. And that's definitely what he did. But to Bert's surprise, the kids say no. This kid was trying to do the whole challenge for us. And he even showed us the way, saying that he saved them. Which leaves Isaac completely lost, saying that they're completely wrong. And even William asks if this is what they call Stockholm Syndrome. And so Beth asks, what do you mean saved? And aren't they ashamed? Calling themselves candidates for sainthood, and to think they were saved by a simple little rat. And one of the kids says that he was the one who was after them. So why is he acting so tough, since he did absolutely nothing? And that's right. Isaac is much more of a saint than he is, because he came here without asking them for anything. They're going to tell the adults when they get out of there, because he just hid like a coward, while Isaac helped all of them. And Shiri thinks that's not it. This evil child was draining my powers, until they surround him. But to everyone's surprise, the chamber starts to shake, and a ball of energy appears before them. And just like that, another door is revealed. And they wonder if this is the door to the third chamber. And then, that energy congratulates them all for completing the second chamber. And this is the final challenge of the treasury. And they have a choice. Take their treasure there and finish the test, or they can face the challenge and enter the third chamber. And they must answer carefully. And the kids say that they will definitely choose to enter the third chamber. But that energy tells them to be careful, because if they choose the treasure and end the test, they will be safe. Or they can face the challenge of the third chamber. If he passes the test, he will discover the treasure of the third chamber. However, if he doesn't pass, they will all die. And so, the spirit says that this guardian commands them, and what he senses from this voice is definitely that of a dragon. And our boy says yes, it's been a while since he's seen one. And he starts to think that it must be true, that if he fails, you die. And the boys around him say they will still go to the third chamber. Getting there was too difficult, to just give up halfway. And if he can get the treasure from the third chamber, he'll be able to become a saint, and the guys all start agreeing with each other. But that voice says that they will risk their lives by facing death in this challenge. And he understands. So let them face the treasury's greatest challenge. And as the chamber trembles, our boy just laughs. And just like that voice says that those who have gathered there to become a saint must face a challenge, putting their lives on the line. And the final challenge will be simple. And this boy just keeps smiling in their faces. And it's that statue of one of the gods. It says they must worship God, which surprises everyone, as they think, so in the end it's that statue again. This is the cardinal statue. And so, the statue says they must show respect towards God. And only those who have shown devotion in front of the statue will be able to enter the third chamber. And the kids wonder if that's really true. And this was supposedly a test. And wasn't this a little too simple? But Isaac, completely pissed off, wonders what kind of bullshit this is. And if they really want him to kneel in front of that bastard, the guy who screwed him over for hundreds of years. And so the kids make up their minds, saying they just have to pray to the supreme God in front of the statue, and it shouldn't be a big deal. And so he kneels and says that he is worthy of all glory and honor their sovereign God, and that his servant worships him. And with that, the statue says that he learned well, and that's great. He can pass. And the kids around them realize that's all there was to it, and they start kneeling one by one. But Isaac jumps off of Shuri, and Shuri tells him that he has to pray. But Isaac gives him a hard kick in the leg, saying there's no way in hell he's doing that. But to Isaac's surprise, that one guy, Barrett, says that prayer is taught by the holy faith, and that they should watch carefully. This is the correct way to worship the supreme God. He says they want to do it too, and they will praise the Lord. And that statue then asks about the others, if they have given up and are choosing death. But the kids still standing say no, and begin to kneel. But then that statue asks our boy why he isn't kneeling. And the silver-haired one says he'd have to be completely insane to kneel in front of this statue. And the kids don't understand why he's not doing anything, and wonder if he has a problem with his own faith. And Julio thinks these kids are possessed, and that she can't tarnish the name of her Exua family, so she should just pray already. And the Pope's grandson, looking very pleased, says that all of this will be recorded. And he asks if he's really going to lose his position as a saint to this brat. And of course not. It doesn't matter how talented he is. It's useless if he doesn't have faith. And he was just worrying for nothing. Then this statue says that the holy child is acting disrespectfully. But the kid, in his own baby talk, asks, so what can you do about it? And says he'd rather die than kneel. And if it really thinks he's going to kneel in front of it, then he just tells it to kill him already. But to his surprise, that statue starts to unleash its pressure right onto our boy. And just like that, the statue says that those who disrespect it must die. That pressure starts to increase right on our boy's body, while Isaac tells it to go to hell. And if it wants to do it, it should just do it already, calling the statue stupid and saying that he's going to smash it to pieces. But the wisp says that this is too dangerous, as our Isaac starts to charge a very strong power in the palm of his hand. And in that moment, the statue smiles and says that this is impressive, which leaves our boy completely lost. And the statue says that he passed. He can now go to the third chamber, which surprises everyone. And so Quina speaks up. And so Quina asks what it's talking about. It said they had to show devotion to pass. And how can he pass without even praying to the statue? That's completely impossible. But then the statue said that the only one who has the right to pass to the third chamber is that little baby. And that child was the only one who showed his faith in God. And he asks if they didn't understand. They didn't kneel to God, but to a statue. And he asks if their faith tells them to worship idols, which leaves everyone shocked. And even Shiro thinks that even if the statue is in the form of God, a statue is still an idol. In the end, it was a trick. And the others realize that this is actually true. And so, the statue tells them to look at that baby. Even when facing death, he didn't lose his faith. And that child alone has the right to enter the third chamber. And they look at our Isaac, who is completely lost. And even Whisper asks how could he have faith. He goes before the statue and says he's just a baby who doesn't even know how to speak properly. There's no way he could have refused to kneel because of his faith. And this Whisper says that he's saying that out of anger. But in the end, he's right. And the grandson of the Pope keeps talking, saying that if that child has so much faith, how come he doesn't have a stigma? Which greatly surprises our boy. And the children around wonder if he really doesn't have one. How can a candidate for sainthood not have a stigma? And here he cracks a little smile, thinking that among the candidates for sainthood, he's the only one who doesn't have a stigma. And it just tells him to give up. A saint without a stigma can't possibly exist. But then, the statue says that a saint without a stigma is because he's a baby, which leaves everyone completely lost. And the statue says that a baby has no reason to have a stigma yet. And Quina says that makes no sense. And besides, how could he have been moving this whole time? And so, that voice says that babies don't need to have one yet. He asks if they think it's lying. But then, Quina asks it to let him enter too. Because if even a child without a stigma can enter, then he should be able to enter, since he has one too. And that's right. This is the proof that he's a candidate to be a saint. And the statue says they should know that a stigma doesn't appear, just because they're so good. And so, it asks if all of them feel that way. They all say yes. And it asks them again if they all want to enter the third chamber. And they say, of course. And since everyone feels that way, and so, the statue says that it's all right. Everyone can go to the third chamber. And they are very surprised. And Shuri thinks that this is way too easy. And the statue continues saying that if they truly wish to enter the third chamber, then so be it, giving them a malicious little smile. And with that, it opens that gigantic door, and a dark energy. Evil energy starts to surround everyone, and they all start shaking in their boots, with their bodies freezing in fear. And this is the second question. If they feel it, it's the demonic energy coming from the Skeleton King's body, and they don't even know their place. And he was going to spare the weaklings, who couldn't handle this energy, but they all decided to act against him, and wanted to go to the third chamber. But unlike everyone else, our boy is over there giving them a little smile, with his eyes wide open. Because that's right. His body, the Skeleton King's body, is behind that door. And now facing that door, our little guy thinks that he never thought he'd see it again, after he self-destructed in the divine realm. But he's drooling, looking at all the mana leaking from that room. And the kids around him notice this and get scared. And this is the status says, you may look at that child, because that is the proof of your faith. And his expression is like that of a brave warrior. But the kids say, brave my ass. He's actually completely insane. That energy says it's not too late, and they are not warriors who can smile in the face of death, like that child. So they should leave. And if they go back now, he will allow them to take some treasures from the second chamber. And so Shuri thinks this sucks. How are they supposed to get through all this demonic energy? The kids say they want to go back, because otherwise they'll really die there. But Kina steps forward and says no. He doesn't need the treasures from the second chamber. All of them will advance to the third chamber. On top of that, he asks it to please activate all the traps in the third chamber. And the kids around wonder what the hell this guy is talking about. And so that energy asks if this is what they truly desire. And Kina says that not even the past saint or saintess managed to bring back the Skeleton King's body. And even Saintess Melissa, the incomparable genius, couldn't do it. And so, the energy says that he seems to know something about the third chamber. And Kina thinks to himself that yes, he does. Saintess Melissa would never let children die, and she must have had some countermeasure prepared to prevent their deaths. And this elephant doesn't want others to say that he chose the easier path. And so he wants it to set the third chamber to its usual difficulty level. Only then will they have surpassed the Saintess. And our boy hearing this thinks that guy has a screw loose too. And this energy says that if this is what they wish, then it must listen to them. And in fact, this will make it easier to find the true saint among the candidates. It begins to activate everything inside the third chamber, which surprises all the boys as they feel that energy. And the kid behind Kina says he should have gone in alone, asking why he dragged all of them into this. And at that moment, they begin to enter. After they're inside, the demonic energy is suppressing their bodies. But as our boy looks around, he thinks it's almost as if the demonic realm is right there. And so Whisper tells him to look at that place. And when he realizes it, there's the arm of the Skeleton King in the center of that chamber. And Whisper says that this is the sublime body of his master. And our drooling protagonist thinks this is great. He can't wait to absorb the power inside the third chamber. And so the kids ask if that's the corpse of the Skeleton King. And they don't understand why all this energy is coming from a single hand. But Prada thinks that it isn't its hand, and that it's coming from its pinky. It's the only fragment there. The rest is just a replica. And as they stare at that demonic hand, something starts to come out of it. And it's a demon with several horns. The kids start to scream in fear, wondering if the guardian in the second chamber wasn't the only demons in there. And that's that voice from before. It asks if they weren't told to deactivate all the protective traps of the third chamber. And so Prada wonders what the hell that is. And at that moment, that demon steps forward, and says they're clever little things. Damn them, and how dare they covet His Majesty's body. The kids start blaming Quina, saying that this is all his fault, and asking what he's going to do now. But Quina takes a step forward, and just asks them to trust him, because he'll make sure of it. That everyone came out of there with treasure in their hands, and he's thinking to himself that this is one of the 14 elite demons, the Skeleton King's most trusted subordinates, personally trained by him. And they're just idiots who were captured by House Papo. And before this, he studied and prepared a divine art just to deal with them. He's certain the treasure will be his. With that, he begins to activate his power, and his eye starts to glow. He commands the demon to kneel before him, and the kids around them wonder what the hell that is, and if that isn't the light from House Papo. And so Quina thinks it worked, and all he has to do now. But at that moment, he's completely shocked, because the demon says, "It's you, the one who covets my king's body." The scene then shifts to the entrance of the treasury, with all the parents waiting for their children, and one of them says, "This is really bad. The demon from the third chamber has been released." And Hilario's friend, completely shocked, asks if the demon from the third chamber isn't one of the 14 elites. And Hilario wonders what the hell is going on. And since it's an elite demon, everyone inside is in grave danger. And as for the other guys, some of their stations are monitoring the chamber. But another guy says they already disabled the traps and have gone missing inside. And realizing this, he says this means they're in danger. But to their surprise, the portal begins to glow, and a gigantic flash of light blinds them for a moment. And there, seeing that light, he realizes the treasury is opening, and the light is incredibly intense. And that guy yells for them to get back, because there might be a demonic energy leak. And it's really dangerous. But that elder asks him to wait, because he can't feel any demonic energy coming from there. And so, the elder wonders if they defeated an elite demon, and the Pope in the back is happy, thinking that Quina succeeded. And those guys are talking amongst themselves about defeating a great elite demon that was guarding the Skeleton King's corpse, and he wonders if a child in there could really do something like that. And some of them are sure it must have been Quina Barrett, because he has the blood of His Holiness, the Pope, which really pisses Hilary off. And so, several people start congratulating His Holiness and saying it's not surprising that his candidate for sainthood is the most favored. And so the Pope says that Quina worked hard, and he looks around and thinks that those nobodies, those ignorant imbeciles who challenged the authority of the papal house, now that the Skeleton King's corpse has fallen into their hands, they have no choice but to kneel before them. Your dignity and honor are all gone now. And so they shout that the children have returned, and they start to watch. And Geraldo wonders if Isaac and Shuri are okay, and the children start coming out of the door. And now the Colosseum watches as those children leave. Several children are hugging their parents, because they were crying terrified. And Geraldo walks around, thinking that they are injured, but at least it was nothing serious. And the other people in charge wonder where the children who entered the third chamber are, and Rele gets really worried too. But at that moment, someone shouts that the last children are coming out, and one person starts to cry, then several others. Hilario's friend runs to his son, and Hilario's brother runs to Shuri, hugging Shuri, because at least he's affectionate with his kid, right? He asks if he's okay. But seeing that scene, Hilario is completely shocked, wondering where Isaac is and why he hasn't come out yet. And so a Pope stares down Quina and asks what's in his hand and where the Skeleton King's body is. But Quina, shaking in his boots, can't speak. And so a really pissed off Pope asks who told him to bring something like that. But behind the Pope, an energy starts to appear, and this energy begins to grow, which surprises everyone. And when they look, it's a gigantic wolf carrying Isaac, and Hilario realizes that Isaac is being carried in the mouth of that golden wolf. And so he runs towards Isaac, and Ashley does too. And Ashley asks the master, "Hilario, is that wolf the young sacred dragon that protects the treasury?" And Hilario thinks that she's right. He really is the young dragon that guards the treasury. He's in the form of a wolf now, but his energy indicates that he is definitely a dragon. And the master had a good relationship with the dragon, and even invited him to the treasury. And even his mere presence is terrifying. But he doesn't understand what this child is doing, sucking on something. And when he realizes, our boy is sucking on the finger, the pinky finger of the Skeleton King, it surprises all the elders, who wonder if that thing Isaac is sucking on, it might be what they think it is. And the elders say yes. This is the body of the Skeleton King. He wonders why she would put that in her mouth. And just then, someone calls out for Quina, which startles the boy. And it's the Pope, who is his grandfather. He gives him a very dark look, and asks if he gave the skeleton's body to that child. And Quina is speechless. And then, the Pope says that no, this could be the most brilliant part of his plan. Helping a philtrum maintain his reputation is the kind of virtue a saint should have. But just at that moment, that young dragon in wolf form asks, "What's this all about?" And it was this boy who brought the Skeleton King's body. And our little girl is over there chewing on a bone, flashing them a peace sign. This completely shocks the Pope, and Quina gets really worried. And then he remembers what happened back in the third chamber. He couldn't understand why his golden sacred arts weren't working on it. And that demon just stared, calling him a filthy child, and then lunged at everyone, telling them all to die. This completely surprised Kina. But in the middle of that explosion, a defensive barrier protected all of them. And they realized that this is the blue sacred art, which means the one who protected them was Zequa's little kid. And so, that demon calls them disgusting clerics, and asks how they dare to covet the body of its skeleton king, screaming for them all to die, lunging to punch our boy. But our little boy clenches his fists and calls him a bastard, asking how he can't even recognize his own master. And a huge explosion happened right there. And so people wonder if this isn't a lie. And these people say the dragon wouldn't lie. And they wonder if Juo's baby really took over the skeleton king's body. So what did Kina do? Well, he loses his mind, yelling at the great dragon that this was way too dangerous, and that the 14 elite demons of the skeleton are too much for a child to handle. And he asks why he broke their seal. But that wolf guy says, "What do you mean 14 demons? It was that kid with the white hair who asked him to break the seal." And so all the kids say that's right. Kiki asked him to activate the traps in the third chamber, and he forced them to enter the third chamber, and they almost died. And so their parents wonder if that child then is the one to blame for their children almost dying, and for them being here crying, scared to death. So does this mean that the child from Zhuo defeated the Barrack family's boy? This makes the old man completely pissed off. And he wonders if this isn't incredible. A boy who can't even become a saint is this strong. And it seems it's true that Zhuo is planning to rise up. Hearing this, the Lion King becomes very happy, thinking that Isaac did a great job. And these elders rush towards him, saying that he's a very good child, and that he should spit out that bone right now, because it's very dangerous and he could choke. But our adorable little guy just smacks them away, and they just stare, wondering, how is this kid so strong? And he just keeps on gnawing at that bone, thinking, wow, this mana is amazing. And he wonders if it's because of his origin of survival trait, because he's absorbing it so quickly. And just then, the main henchwoman says that Isaac has really outdone himself, and that the Matriarch will be overjoyed. And Hillary says that it looks like it. And with a sadistic little smirk, she says that now that they have this, they'll finally be able to track the Skeleton King, and will be able to find his soul using tracking arts. This leaves our protagonist completely shocked, thinking, so, that's why they want my body so badly. The moment the Matriarch, who in this case is Melissa, finds out he's so close to her, he knows he's so screwed. And these psycho-looking users slowly start to close in on our boy, telling him to drop the bone. They're going to use tracking arts to find and rip the Skeleton King's body in half. Meanwhile, our protagonist is thinking they're completely insane, and the elders, looking overjoyed, say that they can now settle their 150-year-old feud, and they demand he hand over the bone. At this, the wolf crouches down, signaling for the baby to get away. But to everyone's surprise, our boy swallows the bone whole. They start screaming his name, while the wolf just turns and leaves, thinking these people are definitely insane. And now the next morning, the elders are talking about how they still haven't been able to find it, and they're getting really worried, because a part of the Skeleton King's body isn't coming out of our little guy's damn stomach. This leaves the protagonist completely pissed off, thinking that they can search all day, but it's never going to come out. And regardless of that, he's more interested in what happened inside the treasury. And now he remembers the day before, when he punched the hell out of that demon, telling him he couldn't even recognize his own master. And after he socked him, that demon realizes that this is his master's mana. He said he thought his world had ended when he saw that his master had died, but he always knew he would come back to life, and he must without a doubt serve his master, who was tortured by them. And our pissed-off protagonist thinks that this whole situation sucks. He should have stuck around to talk more, because he still has a lot of questions. But they said it was the house of Papao that captured the demons, so he should look into that later. And so, Hilario hands a piece of wood to our little guy, asking him to please eat it, and then pass the bone that's in his stomach. And our boy gets really pissed off. Meanwhile, the person behind him is just laughing at the situation. And the protagonist thinks that he will definitely destroy this family someday. And then, another elder says that if the Matriarch finds out about this, all of them will be executed. And she might even want to cut open Isaac's stomach. But Hilario tells him to calm down, because everything is going to be fine. But this makes them both really nervous, because Hilary says that she once disciplined her own son without mercy, but surely she'll go easy on her grandson. At least that's what they think. And so, Whiskey asks his master if Saint Melissa didn't go on a pilgrimage with the Patriarch. And the protagonist says that's right. They probably don't have much time before she returns, and he just has to finish absorbing the mana and escape before she comes back. But just then his uncle Igual Yu enters the room, calls for Hilary, and says the Matriarch is summoning him. This makes the protagonist very worried, and so Hilary asks if his mother has returned. but she's never returned from a pilgrimage this quickly before. The protagonist thinks this sucks and wonders if it's because of him. It's very dangerous for him right now, because he needs to absorb all this mana, and he thinks that knowing Melissa, she will definitely cut his stomach open. But then, to everyone's surprise, several treasures arrive for Isaac, and they are all gifts. And so, that king over there said he thought the Matriarch had already returned. And Igual Yu calls him a wimp, and he says that they just received a voice message from her saying that she's on her way back now. He never said she had already returned. And our little boy gets really pissed off hearing this, because he almost crapped his pants. And then, Isaac's guard says that House Papao also sent a tribute. And these two elders tell them to sell it to someone as if it were stolen. But the guard says that the messenger from House Papao is listening, and he's waiting outside. And at that moment the messenger enters, saying that His Majesty the Emperor is showing great interest in this incident, and he has come with the tribute from the Papao family as a symbol of apology and gratitude. But it seems your gift doesn't suit the tastes of the Chua family. Then he pulls something from his clothes and says that, however, he is sure they will change their minds as soon as they take a look. And as soon as he opens that box, he says that His Eminence the Cardinal says this will be of great help to the young lord. Isaac and the elders are very surprised by the item, realizing that it's the Triple Crown. And so the prodigy asks what it is, and the spirit says it's a medal, a small dirty trinket, with the Pope's emblem engraved on it. And so they wonder if this medal is really for Isaac, and if the Pope gave it to him personally. Then that messenger calls for Hilary and asks that he please accept this, because it belongs to young Lord Isaac. And the silver-haired one wonders why he wants to give this to his uncle, when he could just give the medal directly to him. And Hilary, trembling, asks if he really said to give it to him, and not to Isaac. And the messenger says yes, stating that he was ordered to deliver this to Sir Hilary no matter what. This makes Hilary furious. And the elder asks how he dares give Isaac's medal to a family member, and if he is out of his mind. And doesn't he know what it means to give the medal to the family? Because that means the owner of the medal is already dead, which leaves the protag and Whisper completely shocked. And this incredibly fake messenger says that wasn't the reason, and asks them not to misunderstand His Holiness's intentions. And he simply wanted him to deliver it to the family member, since Lord Isaac is still young. But the elder says that doesn't explain the sash. And does the Papao house really not know that the sunflower is given to fallen soldiers to honor their heroic deeds? And the protag thinks that this gift is basically a coffin. And so that absolutely furious elder woman says that they are the bastards and are openly ridiculing them because of the Exua curse. And so that goblin, trying to help the messenger from the Papao house, asks them to please calm down. They shouldn't speak without thinking. But the elder asks, how am I supposed to keep calm? And so, like I said, the elder is a representative of the Exua house. So how can he just antagonize the Papao house? They mustn't let things escalate, or it will cause trouble for the family. Meanwhile, he thinks that he never knew it was possible to put them in their place by giving such a hateful gift. This must have been the Cardinal's plan. He may be from his mother's side of the family, but even he feels disgusted. But now Hilary and that brat won't get to do whatever they want like before, which is very good for him. And this is the move Hilary is making. He must accept his gift and show his gratitude. But Hilary yells at him, only for the protag to hold out his hand thinking that this just won't do. And to that messenger's surprise, an aura starts coming out of the metal, and then begins to cover his hand. At that moment he drops the box with the metal, and the metal starts to burn, which surprises everyone, with that intense flame burning the metal in front of them all. And so completely surprised, they say that this is the sacred flame. And who would be using the sacred flame at a time like this? That astonished messenger looks over at Isaac, and when everyone else looks, they see the one who burned the metal was Isaac himself, with this look on his face, like a mischievous little devil. And this here is the messenger, asking what they think they're doing, and how they dare to do this to a medal presented by the Pope. He then asks if this is an act of rebellion against him. And those elders ask if by any chance it looks like they did this on purpose. This was the work of a baby, a simple baby who doesn't understand anything. And why is he getting so upset with a baby who can't even receive the medal in person? And so Hilary says that it's a shame. Since the accident happened before, they had managed to receive the medal, then they will just consider it as if they never received it at all. This leaves the messenger completely stunned. And so Real asks what's wrong, and if he should do as he suggested, where he should accept this medal that was melted by a child. And he asks if this medal was truly given by His Holiness the Pope. And the elders, completely surprised, don't understand how the metal melted, as the messenger asks him to hand it over, because he must have brought the wrong item. But to his surprise, he is also burned by the sacred flames, and the elders start to laugh, saying that little Isaac is very mischievous. Meanwhile, our boy thinks that if he doesn't let go of him, he will burn him too. And after being burned, the messenger says that they are cursed, that they are the damned Exua family. And the elders celebrate overjoyed with Isaac in their arms, saying that he did a good job. It's as if he took away years of their pain, and that other elder starts yelling at Goal, telling him to throw that medal away right now. And the other smiling elder says what a shame it is that he didn't get to see the face of that doormat from the Pope's family. And they say that Hilary did a good job by using the sacred flames. At that moment, it was the perfect tactic. But Hilary asks, "What do you mean?" And the elder says he's a fool, and that he doesn't need to play dumb. You used the sacred art of the sacred flame on Isaac. But Hilary is very doubtful, asking if it wasn't them who did it, which leaves the elders quite surprised. And one of them says that it was he who used a sacred art on him when he entered the treasury as well. But Hilary says he only used the sacred art of invisibility. And so, the elder asks if it was difficult to use. The sacred art of light steps on Isaac, and Hilary, very doubtful, asks if he was the one who used light steps, which leaves them very surprised, and so they say it can't be. All of those sacred arts were performed by our little boy Isaac, and so, it's said that the Book of Secret Techniques is a top-level treasure, a mythical item that allows you to learn a secret technique immediately. And it's a good thing he got it from the treasure rooms. He's weaker than when he was the Skeleton King, but it's still usable. And this here is the elder. He asks if it wasn't Isaac's mother who cast a sacred art on him. And the elder says his mother didn't possess a fire attribute. In fact, she has the opposite. The elders say that this is on a whole different level than mere talent. It's the same as writing a poem without knowing how to read. And the female elder says that even Saint Melissa, who was hailed as angelic, had to at least learn how to read before using the sacred arts. And the silver-haired man thinks that this is some real pressure. He thinks that he showed more than he should have. And then Ashley speaks up saying, by the way, isn't the fact that he removed the Pope's blessing even more surprising? This startles the two of them, and they remark on how perceptive he is. So the elder tells them to bring the medal so he can confirm it. The man then rummages through the box to get the medal, but he says it's not there. The female elder is very concerned and asks what happened, because it was right there just a moment ago. But then Goal says he threw it away, which leaves everyone shocked. And Goal says, weren't you the ones who told me to throw it away? And they reply that even so, that's just not something you do. He orders several people to gather and search for it, while the very sly Goya thinks to himself that he actually melted the medal given by the Pope, which was supposed to resist any flame, and he can't let the Patriarch find out about this, and that this will surely be dismissed as just a baseless rumor. A few days later, in the western part of the Exua estate, the Patriarch has finally arrived, and he says that the mansion is close and asks them to stay on their guard. They say yes, and as he's walking, he looks at the lake and notices something is there. And now back at the Exu house, the elders are very worried. They wonder why the Skeleton King's body isn't passing through him. Meanwhile, he promptly thanks them because his body is grateful for the feast and looking very sad. They say they're already on their 300th bottle of laxative. They also gave him 500 wild fruits from the Julius Kingdom. And even so, the Skeleton King's body didn't come out. And Isaac thinks that those fruits were great. He heard that they increase one's affinity with divine beasts, and these beasts serve as great tools or battle partners. And very happy, he says there's no problem with increasing his affinity for them, because they are very important in his mission to crush the Pope and the gods. He is sure that the Exu family also has a divine beast at their residence. And as soon as he looks back, he sees a gigantic spirit whale flying over the house. And this is the divine beast of the Exu residence, the Tarambon. And as he stares at that beast, the Patriarch suddenly throws the door open, which surprises all of them. They greet the Patriarch, and so the boy stares at him. He thinks that this must be the Patriarch of the Exua family, who in this case would be his grandfather. And he has a good feeling about this, because the origin of survival is shining brightly for him. And so Hilary speaks with his father and begs him please to give him more time. He says that cutting open Isaac's stomach won't be beneficial, but a very cheerful Prata just thinks he should relax, because there's no way they're going to cut his stomach open. And so the Patriarch gestures to Isaac and asks him to burn that thing. This leaves Prata completely lost, and so Hilary speaks up and says no, he can't do that. Meanwhile, Prata thinks that his origin of survival must be broken. Why would he want to burn him now? And the only person he can really trust is his uncle. And he says that he's still too young to be burned and asks him to reconsider. But Goy from behind comes running and says he agrees, that this would be a very beneficial reward for him. Meanwhile, our boy, who's completely pissed off, just thinks, why do they want to burn his reward? And Patrick says that yes, it is possible to remove the skeleton's body if they set it on fire. He might even become stronger with the blessing of the flames. But Hilary begs them please to give them more time. But Goy, who is really annoying, says it's better for them to just cut his stomach open already. But Hilary insists that they can't, and Hilary says he can drown Isaac instead, and Prada thinks that this house is full of lunatics. Then Goy said, "I told you this isn't enough. The flames of the temple's water are the secret techniques of the Exua that are only used to strengthen the saintess, and they can't use that on a child who has no abilities whatsoever." And that old man asks, "What do you mean, no abilities? And how can you say that?" Meanwhile, Prada thinks that this must be a good thing, considering how against it he's being. And so Gol says that Shuri would be much faster to receive the blessing after all. And he was the one who defeated the demon inside the treasure room. But Hilary asks what he's talking about, and says that it was Isaac who defeated the demon. The holy dragon itself gave its testimony, but Gol says the dragon must have been mistaken. And how could a baby who can't even walk properly defeat a demon? Relajo just tells him to stop talking nonsense, because he's going too far. And besides, Isaac burned the Pope's medal using the sacred flame. Is he going to deny even that which he saw with his own eyes? But Goyo says he could have arranged it with the elders. And who knows? No one has any proof. But to their surprise, the Patriarch starts pulling something from his robes, and says that when he's talking about medals, he must be referring to this, showing them the Pope's medal, the one that Isaac burned. And we're told that the only people connected to God are the Pope and the gold that receives the Pope's blessing. This is called blessed gold. Prada thinks that it's not easy to melt, even when he was the Skeleton King. So how is this possible? And he asks himself, did I end up getting stronger when I was reincarnated in this body? And so Hilary asks, how did you find that model? And the Patriarch says he found it along the way, and that it was at the bottom of the lake. Lorele asks him to take a look at it, and since he's so proficient with fire, then he should be able to withstand the Skeleton King's flames. And Silver thinks, yeah, this should be enough. And to prove that Exua might have an edge against the Pope's family. And so, Relay says that his people have been suffering great losses recently because of the Skeleton King who's been hiding. And the Elder says that it's true. The era of the Skeleton King will return if they don't do anything about it. And Silver wonders what's going on. And Whisper says that they're talking about this again. And it seems someone is actually impersonating him. And Silver thinks that it's not like he cares about it or who this person is. It doesn't really make a difference. Because this way, he'll be able to operate more easily if they keep drawing all the attention. And Whisper says, that's true, but still. And Hilary says that it's been over 70 years since the skeleton appeared at Chua's mansion to cast his curse, which really surprises our boy. And Relay, absolutely furious, says that he attacked them, saying he would eradicate the saint's bloodline. And he gets enraged just thinking about that curse. And Whisper says that if it was 70 years ago, there's no way it could have been his master. After all, he passed away 150 years ago. And Isaac thinks that's right. Model, a curse cast upon his lineage. So, that's why they said he wouldn't live very long, but he's really confident saying that, well, the Daka curse, or any measly little curse is no big deal for him. If he suppresses it with mana, it won't be fatal. But the Elder says that even if it doesn't kill them, the decline in reproductive abilities could make their descendants infertile and not very tall. And a lot of people also end up going bald early on, which makes the protagonist furious, thinking that he's going to kill that shitty fraud. And the specialist says that the hair loss might be an unrelated genetic problem. But Isaac asks if he can't see that everyone in Hilary's family has a full head of hair. And so the Patriarch approaches our boy and says that since he has red eyes, he must already be under the curse, and fire and water are too weak. The protagonist wonders what he's even talking about. Then the Patriarch says he's going to give him the Holy Spirit. This surprises everyone, and even the protagonist is really shocked, thinking that the Holy Spirit is a divine spirit that can only be obtained if it's granted. He needs it. He'll reach the level of transcendence, which not even the gods can easily achieve. And he thinks he's hit the jackpot, because once he gets the divine spirit, he'll reach the level of transcendence and finish off all those damn gods. But Uncle Gol is against it, and asks, what do you mean the Holy Spirit? He asks if it isn't too much for him, saying that the Holy Spirit can only be granted to those who have brought honor and glory to their family. And even though he managed to burn the medal, it only served to provoke the Papa family, and they won't let this slide. And so Prada thinks he can take him down again. But the Patriarch looks at him and asks him to explain what he was doing when the Papa family sent them that humiliating gift. This leaves Gold very worried. And so the Patriarch glares at him furiously and says they dared to provoke them in Exu territory, and not only did he let them go, he even defended them. What has he been doing, besides criticizing his own nephew? And as if that weren't enough, he still wants to take away what is rightfully his. This makes Gold extremely uncomfortable. And this Patriarch says that even animals protect the young of their pack. And more importantly, the Exu family protects all of its own, especially the weakest of them all. and the one they were supposed to protect ended up protecting their pride instead. And if this noble act didn't bring honor to the Exu family, then what else would? This makes our protagonist pretty happy to hear him say that, and Gold fell to the ground trembling with fear. The Patriarch orders them all to gather in the main house because they are going to bless Isaac. And now, a few days have passed, and Hilary goes to his father and asks if he's really not going to give the Holy Spirit to Isaac. But the Patriarch asks if he still doesn't get it. He'll end up with some kind of disability if they put him in the fire or the water to remove the body of the Skeleton King. The flames and waters of the temple reject anything demonic because of its immense power, and he won't be able to learn the sacred arts of exorcism if that ends up happening. And Goal says that if that's the case, he won't be able to get past rank 5 as a high priest. His father says that he'll have to live a life as a rank 4, and so he'll allow Isaac to choose between fire, water, or the Holy Spirit, and that should be a good enough test. And Goal gets really excited, thinking that he knew that he would never give him a Holy Spirit so easily. And so he places 3 pearls in front of our little boy and tells him to choose. And Hilary, looking at them, thinks that between the fire energy, the water energy, and the Holy Spirit energy, Isaac should choose the white orb. But when he realizes it, Isaac has picked up the red orb, which surprises everyone. And as Isaac is looking at it, Goal asks Hilary not to be disappointed, because at the 4th rank, he'll still be able to bring honor to the Exua family. But to the surprise of them both, that pearl starts to crack, and an intense flame bursts out from it right above them. Could these be the flames of the temple? And so the spirit comes out of that flame, and Hilary is very surprised to see it. And so this fire spirit just stares at them, and starts to launch its fire at them. And Goal asks how this is possible, and why there was a Holy Spirit in that little orb. And his father tells him to stop making a fuss, because he never said there was only one Holy Spirit among them, which really surprises Goal. And his Patriarch says that water is the foundation of Exua. But even so, he melted the Pope's gold with fire, and as he faces the spirit, it says it placed a trap in the final test, but that he made the right choice. Still, this is completely unexpected. And this fire spirit begins to scream for Eli Exu, demanding to know if he's forgotten his place. And how dare they summon one who is considered a king to this miserable human realm? Then activating multiple flames, it starts hurling them at them. The elders are terrified, ordering them to conjure the sacred art of defense. And Goal asks his father, "How could you summon a king? Are you trying to get our territory destroyed?" But the Patriarch says he wasn't the one who performed the summoning, and he points over to Isaac, saying that little thing over there is the one who did it. And that boy, he might actually die. Meanwhile, Prada can only stare at the fire spirit, looking extremely worried. And now, with that fire spirit unleashing its power on all the family members, our baby boy thinks to himself that he only added a small amount of sacred power to summon a mid-rank spirit. He has no idea why a king level 1 was summoned. The spirit asks what this baby's body is even made of, and our little baby, completely shocked, asks himself what would have happened if he'd used all of his sacred power. But to his surprise, he stares at the spirit as it launches anti-magic flames, and seeing the spirit practically boiling with rage, it says, yes, that's it. These are the flames that transform humans into sacred power. It will be of great help in his current state. And Silver says that he's right. But how is he going to make that guy obey him while he's burning his entire family? And besides, Hank Ray's spirit has connections to the divine realm, and he can't get involved with those damned gods just yet. And Whisper says that he's right, and that there isn't a single sacred spirit who wasn't close to the gods. But to their surprise, one of those old geezers, this is that evil spirit, the one that the gods disowned. And so the Patriarch said that he understands. He would also abandon the gods if they badmouthed the color of his hair. Meanwhile, Silver thinks, did this guy really pick a fight with the gods? Just because of that. But the furious spirit tells them to shut their mouths, because they are merely inferior humans. He asks the Patriarch what possessed him to use and summon him in a submission ritual. But the Patriarch says it wasn't him. It was that little baby who summoned him, which greatly surprises the spirit, while our little boy gives him a smirk. And the spirit, absolutely furious, asks if the old man has lost his mind, and if he's really going to sacrifice a baby to escape his wrath. Then the Patriarch says he's only telling the truth, that he never summoned a spirit like him. He says he knows his house is in decline, but how could he do this to a small child? But to the spirit's surprise, he saw our boy drooling over him, and Silver thinks that if this spirit is skilled and hates the gods' model, so it will make him its own at any cost, and he will be its mana filter. And that is the spirit. It says it will personally make sure to kill this brat, and if it was really him who summoned it, then according to the contract of the summoning rituals for submission, he should be able to withstand this blow, unleashing its sacred fire on him. Then a tremendous explosion erupts, which surprises everyone, and they scream Isaac's name, And so the spirit says it had better have sent him to the next world. But to its surprise, our boy is completely fine. He doesn't have a single scratch. And this patriarch says that this must have convinced it, that it was this child who summoned it. So now he tells it to decide, make a contract with the baby, or break the contract and suffer the consequences. The spirit asks, what consequences? As if he thinks that it, a king-ranked spirit, would be afraid of something like that. And in fact, it's going to take this chance to destroy the Exua and enjoy its freedom in the human realm. It tells him to just watch silently while this land is swallowed by flames, and it calls him a foolish patriarch. But to its surprise, our boy simply puts it in his mouth, which shocks everyone, and they rush to get the spirit out of his mouth. And the spirit inside is furious and says that they're completely insane if they even want to take care of this boy. And it says that it will retreat for now, but when it returns, it will make them pay for all this humiliation. And just like that, the silver-haired guy sees that this spirit is using teleportation. And when this fire spirit is about to teleport, to everyone's shock, nothing happens. And the prodigy realizes that something seems to have gone wrong. And that little guy asks himself what the hell happened. But then he realizes that this is demonic energy. So Patrick says that this is because he swallowed the Skeleton King's thumb. And the spirit asks how they could have let him do something like that. Meanwhile, the silver-haired guy thinks that holy spirits are the noblest of beings and are blessed by the entire holy faction. And since he knows the unification of sanctity, they are especially weak against his mana. And this spirit says that its strength is draining away, and he's starting to feel repulsed just by being there. And he tells them to stop it. But Patrick says, my bad, he can't get any closer to him, because the Skeleton King's energy is too powerful. And that guy is really pissed off. He says that he's lying, because he's always the first one to charge in whenever the Skeleton King is mentioned. Then Patrick says he'll let him go home. Later, and for now, he will stay in his grandson's body and purify all of the Skeleton King's mana. Meanwhile, the furious spirit screams that that's not possible. So Patrick says that in that case he will let him be swallowed. Hearing this, the spirit says that they're all psychopaths, with no exceptions, and he would have cut all ties with them if it weren't for the house of the saint. This really sucks, but since he's already here, he's going to use this child to screw over that bastard, the Skeleton King model. But what he didn't expect was that our little baby would start licking him with demonic energy. And so that spirit said that for 4 days, he must keep him trapped. For 4 days. And if it's only a thumb, then that should be enough. So the patriarch thinks that he was expecting it to be more than 4 days. And so he told everyone to open the castle gates and take Isaac, the sacred spirit, over there and not to let anyone enter until the purification is complete. And Lee asks if he's being serious, and his older brother says that he can't go to the East Castle. But his father says that's enough. It's not open for discussion. And our boy spits the spirit out of his mouth and thinks that the East Castle is right next to that building with huge piles of mana cores. This is actually going to be really good. And now in the East Castle of the Enshwar Mansion, huge explosion goes off. And the workers nearby realize that it exploded again. This must be the work of young Master Isaac, and they say that it seems like the Patriarch has already given up, so the next successor will be Master Goal, who inherited the Pope's blood, or his older brother. But that maid said that young Master Isaac is falling behind, because he's cursed. But this other guy asks, what do you mean he's cursed? And she says yes. A servant went to take a look, but he was terrified when he saw him, and ran out of there. And this other fella says, he found out that he looked like a bald old man, but the maid asks if he swallowed a monster without any fur or a skeleton. And now that she stops to think about it, it's been a long time since the young master Isaac entered the East Castle with that Holy Spirit, and exactly 10 years have passed. And now inside the mansion, Isaac's personal maid is approaching his room. And when she opens the door, she announces that she has arrived for Lord Isaac, and she looks at him worriedly asking if he's all right. But to her surprise, our cute little boy hasn't grown at all in 10 years. He's just there casually eating his little lollipop, and she wondered just how strong the Skeleton King's curse is for him to stay so small like this. But the very conceited protagonist thinks she's completely wrong. He's only small because he still wants to be small. And that's because babies absorb power much better than anyone else. And there's a level you can reach only while you're a baby. And that spirit beside him says that his body hurts. And so Isaac asks the spirit, whose name is Charles, if he slept well. But Charles says that this sucks. He wants to purify this damn baby, no matter what he has to do. And he almost succeeded last night. But when he looks at our boy, all that purification went down the drain, because he was back to normal once again. And he says that he's a disgraceful monster. And how much of the skeleton did he eat to have so much of its mana, even after 10 years? And why is there always more every time he wakes up? But our little boy thinks it's because he has been absorbing the mana from the cores, and has been at this grind every night for the last 10 years. And in the background, Fed says he wasn't expecting there to be so many of them, and he thought it would take at least 40 years, but somehow it only took him 10. And Prata thinks he's finally finished collecting the mana. He couldn't learn it properly, because he had to learn all by himself. But now, he can also use rank 6 holy spells. And Stella, looking at him, says that everything will be all right. And that Pope is also making his move. Meanwhile, Isaac is wondering about the Pope. But to his surprise, she tells him he's going to execute all the servants of the Skeleton King, the ones who threaten the Empire, the 14 elite demons. And looking very happy, she says they are going to extract every last drop of mana that the skeleton has in his body. And she tells him not to worry, but he's extremely worried, wondering what on earth she just said, and how that Pope is going to kill all of his subordinates. But she has him lie down again, and tells him to rest a little. But Prata is worried, thinking that he has to do something to save those guys. And that's when he overhears the conversation outside the mansion, where that guy Goal is saying his son did extremely well. Not only did he skip a grade, but he's also the youngest priest ever appointed. And he heard that even the princess is going to be at his appointment ceremony, and for him to accompany them while being the top of his class. It's a really great honor, and Shuri says it's nothing. After all, he is his son, and the two of them start laughing. And his father says that he's humble above all else, and that his son has really grown up. But to his surprise, Shuri was simply pulled up. When Shuri realizes it, he has been taken to Isaac's room. He immediately falls face first on the floor, and very worried. He realizes he's in deep trouble with Isaac right in front of him, asking if he wants to die, and if he can't stop lying, and if he thinks he can get away with it just because he got into the academy. And Shuri, very worried, thinks it's this damn kid again. And Isaac said that he only managed to achieve everything so far because he taught him everything. But Shuri says he did his best too. And does he think it's easy to be nominated while also being the best in his class? But our little guy says that would be impossible for him alone. Shuri says that's true. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks that he also has to start preparing. And most of the sacred spells are only available when you get nominated. And so he tells Shuri that he's going to have to help him. And Shuri asks what he wants to do now. And the protagonist stares at him with an evil look. But a happy Shuri asks what he wants him to help with. But the protagonist makes a very sadistic face and tells him to hand over everything he got. And he's talking about the prize money from the competition, the quiz, and all the things that Goal gave him. The protagonist makes Shuri very sad, thinking that this kid is a complete demon. He starts giving a massage to Isaac, while our little baby says that for now that's all. He asks if he knows anything about the execution of the Skeleton King's servants. And Shuri, he says that ever since the incident at the relic warehouse, they haven't heard anything else. And it seems like everyone is just waiting to die, and they'll be executed soon. And Isaac says there's no other way. He'll have to do it within a year. A surprised Shuri asks what he's going to do, and our boy says it's the priest appointment. And Shuri starts laughing at him, saying that he hasn't even gotten into the academy yet. So how does he plan to do that? But Isaac himself just punches him right on the head and asks why he's laughing. And Julio tells him that actually, there's a recommendation system, and some of the academy professors are also part of it. And with a letter of recommendation, he can be appointed if he passes a test. However, he has to have done something that proves his character. And since he's kind of a complete jerk, that's very difficult. Which leaves Isaac really pissed off at him for saying that. But Julio says that he only writes recommendations if he does something really big, like saving a person's life. And the higher up they are in society, the better. And Silver says that he only has 1 month left. And he asks Shuri if the princess will be at his appointment. And Shuri says yes. And Silver, with his evil plan, asks if the princess isn't at the top of society. And now at the training grounds there at the door, the Patriarch tells them to go back, because Isaac will not be going to the capital. And these two extras say that it's different this year, and he has to go to the founding festival this year. It's where all the saint candidates will be nominated. And the Patriarch thinks about it. They explain that while all the others have been making a name for themselves, for the past 10 years, Isaac has yet to show himself to the world. And then they ask if he didn't accomplish an incredible, almost casual feat with relics 10 years ago. And they decided that Lord Isaac is in the East Wing, just as all the saints have been. That's truly incredible. So they're looking forward to seeing how much he has grown. And that other guy said that as an educator at the academy, it is his life's wish to teach Lord Isaac. And this nomination is on the same date as the princess's birthday. So even the Pope will be there. And the Patriarch thinks about that Pope. And then one of them says that the Pope will personally grant heroic titles to those being nominated, which greatly surprises him. The Patriarch thinks about how receiving a heroic title multiplies one's strength, and it would be very beneficial for him. But still, he says Isaac isn't old enough to be nominated. But that teacher asks, what does age matter in the face of talent? and the two of them looked like two little chipmunks. The Patriarch gives in and tells them to do whatever they want. These two get very happy, but the Patriarch says that, however, they must take responsibility for their words. Meanwhile, back in Isaac's room, Shuri continues to be his servant, giving him a massage. Model. And after that, out there outside of Isaac's room, there's an old man just staring at the house and thinking that he is there to provoke a royal rank spirit and forge a contract with it, something that even the Pope only knows how to do. For a short period of time, he thinks that a black-haired fire spirit was referring to the one who guards the barriers of heaven, the spirit that did not become a king because of its twisted temperament. And he gives a malicious little smile, thinking that Pablo and his family love to collect spirits, so they're going to go crazy when he brings this spirit to them. And he also has something to neutralize the divine mana, so his preparations are complete. And if he suppresses the divine mana in that rat's body, the Rescalato's mana will definitely go wild. And that little baby is going to suffer a lot. He's just going to slip away quietly amidst all the chaos. And now the visitors are heading straight to our boy's room. And when the door opens, they enter. And the two professors from before say that so this is Lord Isaac. And as they were told, he looks exactly the same as he did 10 years ago. Isaac looks at them with this baby face saying, playing up his whole baby persona, that they are welcome for their recommendations, which makes the two of them blush on the spot because he's so cute. And even that old man who's his enemy also blushed, while thinking that this little fox is trying to charm people. But he quickly grabs Isaac by the arm and starts to activate his power, saying that now he must enter a frenzy. But our little cutie simply looks at him with his giant reddish eyes, and the old man wonders what's happening. And he lets the kid go, enough to make the dark mana go into a rage. But to the old man's surprise, that spirit up there says that he's an insufferable bastard, and asks why he's doing this, and why he's releasing so much divine mana. The old man is pretty surprised, thinking that so this is the spirit, and now is his chance. And he pulls something from his clothes, and he starts to wipe that cloth on Isaac's face, saying that he must be sweating because of the weather. But Isaac thinks that this smell is familiar, and this old man is definitely a scumbag. And to the spirit's surprise, starts to feel sick. And that anatomy professor asks why the spirit is like this. But to both of their surprise, that spirit starts to fly into a rage, and emitting a dark aura, it begins to scream. And those guys wonder if it's losing control because of the Skeleton King's beloved. This is really dangerous. He thinks that this is great. He just needs to capture the spirit that's gone berserk. So he breaks a capsule and says that now's the time, and activates the agonizing cleaver, sending that fire toward the spirit. And that flame begins to surround its body. But to the old man's surprise, the flame simply ricochets and goes directly for his body, burning him alive, while Isaac in the back watches the scene very happily. Model. Then in the middle of the confusion, his uncle and his maid enter the room. Meanwhile, Isaac thinks this should be enough, and their mouths have enough spectators. And with that, he begins to channel all that mana. And to everyone's surprise, he's suppressing all that mana. The professors wonder if that's even possible, and he's calming the frenzy. And with our boy feeling pretty confident, he just stares them down, thinking that this solves the mana problem. And now, he orders the spirit to stop it as well, with a snap of his fingers. And all that mana around him begins to disperse. The crowd is shocked watching the scene unfold. And with that, the spirit returns to normal. When it opens its eyes, it's no longer enraged. The professors say it's incredible. He even calmed an enraged spirit. They say it's a miracle. And his uncle approaches him, saying that he finally spoke up. He's very proud of him. But the boys are left wondering if that's the only thing they noticed, and they start tossing Isaac into the air, shouting that this is Lord Isaac. But over in the corner, that old man wonders what the hell just happened. But to his surprise, that very angry spirit says that he's the one who should be asking that, calling him a little servant of the Golden Basilica. With the spirit in a rage, he asks who's behind all this. But the old man says the spirit is mistaken. He only came to find Lord Isaac. But the spirit asks what he means. He's dressed from head to toe, in fire-resistant clothes. But it's this spirit who's mistaken. And from now on, all fire spirits will terminate their contracts with the priests involved with the Pope. This greatly surprises that old man, and the spirit gives a little smirk, saying that she is doing this because she's annoyed. So she hopes he doesn't get the wrong idea, and that she's well worth her price. He wonders what she means, and how they can cut ties with the priests when they are under contract with God himself, especially those of the Pope. And the spirit can't possibly do that. But she says she doesn't care and just tells him to get lost, since she cut her ties with the gods a long time ago. She isn't bound by the rules. And over in the corner, our boy just smiles at him as he tells him one more time to get the hell out. And his spirit approaches Isaac and says that he saved her with his divine mana and even managed to master the Skeleton King's mana. Since the Skeleton King's hand has been purified, her contract ends there, but she will stay by his side to compensate for what he did for her. Meanwhile, our boy, very happy, thinks, of course, just as expected of a divine being, idiots who can't stand being indebted to anyone. And those two professors say they will go back to report what happened to the saintess, and a child of this caliber must be nominated, no matter what. Meanwhile, our boy laughs maliciously, thanking them for their recommendations. And now, in the Patriarch's office, he says that the Holy See is approving Isaac's actions. They want him to participate in this nomination ceremony. But Hilario asks if it can really be that fast, but Patrick says no. He was recommended for having saved a royal rank spirit, so Hilario said that no one could object after that happened. But Patrick said that before that, being appointed is the same as graduating from the academy, so he tested Isaac to see if he had the necessary knowledge. He got a perfect score on all 1,600 questions. The king over there is very happy about that, and he said that he has no more desire for anything, since he can walk and talk for him. All right. But Patrick says it's just a shame that his attitude is so bad, and they just need to confirm the results of his personality test now. And most people pass it very easily, unless they are severely immoral or some kind of criminals. And Hilario says that he just remembered it's a test with a holy spell that forces them to speak the truth. Then Patrick says they will test him. The first question was, what does he think of his family, who gave birth to him and raised him? And his answer was, I will conquer them. And the king over there says that's really witty. And the second question was, what will he do when he is appointed? And our little boy said he would bite and rip off the heads of the gods. And the third question was, explain your dreams and aspirations as a priest of the Herlan Holy Empire. And his answer was, I will annihilate this land, which greatly surprised Hilario. And he asks the Patriarch, what the hell is this? And the old man says that only the two of them saw it. The answers so far. And what if he goes through another test when he's appointed? He'll definitely be executed for heresy. And what if he says he should be appointed in his place? They didn't let Isaac leave the house during this period, and he needs a bit of education first. But what they didn't expect was that our boy was already scheming to get out of the house. And Whisper asked him if he had made his decision. And our boy says yes, saying that he's getting the hell out of there now. Now the next morning at the academy in the capital Roma, the Holy Spells Division, they're talking about how they heard that someone who is 10 years old will be appointed this time. That's really crazy. And how can he be appointed so young? But a guy at the end asks if a brat who can't even walk right can be appointed. And the long-haired guy calls him Nigel and asks what he means by can't even walk. Then Nigel says it's just as he said. That brat hasn't grown at all in the last 10 years, and he was cursed by the Skeleton King without even a chance to grow. He asks Shuri if he doesn't agree right there beside him. And he says how that little one could be appointed, and it's probably just an honorary title. But Shuri thinks these guys are annoying. He'd been quiet for a while, but there he goes again. And Miguel said it must be nice to be from the house of the saint, since even a child who can't walk or talk is going to be appointed. And it's a real disappointment, and I'm just seething with rage. He wonders how he dares to speak like that. To both of their surprise, someone enters the room and asks if he thinks the Holy See is some kind of joke. And besides, you bastard, Isaac's recommendation was his father, Duke Leon September, and no one knew he was idiotic enough to insult his own father. Duke September. And this guy says that she's not even a student at the academy and asks why she's there. But she said that he's a lost cause anyway. She was invited, and they asked her to instruct the graduates as a mentor and instructor of holy spells, which really surprised them. She also says that Shuri worries her too, and that there's no way that cursed Isaac can become a priest, and he hopes that House Exua can survive without falling into ruin until he becomes the Patriarch. He should go see her if his house falls into ruin, because she'll give him a servant's potion at the Pope's house. This makes Shuri tremble with rage, but he just walks past her and says he doesn't need her help, telling her to worry about herself. And now in the dorms, Shuri is fuming in his room, wondering why all this crap is happening to him and his family. His ranking won't even be announced, because that brat ran away. And why now, of all times, did that devil child decide to run away? He hopes he loses all his hair, just like the Skeleton King. But to his surprise, a hand comes out of the floor. And it's our boy's hand, asking what he just said. And Shuri starts screaming in fear. Then our boy, absolutely pissed, asks what he means by going bald, and if he has a death wish. But Shuri asks how he just got out of there. But our little guy sitting down says he saw him, named the Patriarch. His uncle kept trying to stop him, so he just ran away. But he says it doesn't matter and calls him Kim Shore. And the son asks what that is, and our boy with his rattle calls him a little weakling and asks how could he let the trash from the Patriarch's family call him a servant. He starts hitting Shuri, saying that those punks dared to disrespect the Exua name, and how could he just let it slide? He keeps beating Shuri, saying the Exua family is his and he's the only one who can insult them. and he's the only one who can lead them to ruin. No one else can. He tells Shuri to remember this. He will be the one to burn down the house of Exua. Meanwhile, a crying Shuri just begs the gods to take this kid away. But then, Isaac orders him to get up and stop crying, and to show him the way immediately. Shuri asks where he's going. Meanwhile, our boy with this demonic aura says that he's going to finish off those who messed with him. And now in the cafeteria, two girls are talking. One of them wonders who brought a baby in there, and the girl next to her says his hair is beautiful. But to both of their surprise, our boy approaches with this diabolical look on his face and asks who had the audacity to mess with his Exua. They are completely surprised, and our boy says that it must have been that little redhead. He remembers her from 10 years ago, covered in relics. And Shuri behind him just runs to stop him, thinking that he has to stop this guy, because otherwise he's going to cause a lot of trouble. And that girl is Nigel's sister, Nick September. And with that, he leaps towards Isaac, but our boy already dodged him, and he calls her redhead, and says that she was the one who messed with Kim Shuri. And she said she never bothered Shuri, and that the one who did it was Nigel. And our little boy says that's great, so she admits it. But she says it wasn't her, it was Nigel September. And in the back, Shuri tells his master that he feels a familiar energy coming from her. And our boy says that, yes, it's really familiar. And this is the energy of one of the 5 great gods. The girl points at him and says that he must be the Isaac from the rumors, a cursed baby. And the other one is a doormat for the Pope's family. And it seems the Blues won't be able to do much this year either. And it won't be long until the Exua are expelled from the 5 great faiths, judging by her lack of manners. He must be from one of the houses that serve the 5 great gods. Shuri tells Isaac they can't mess with the Crimson House. He just tells him to get out of there. But our boy just tells him to shut up. And why would he go back? He has to go to his nomination. Then Nick says that he'll never be nominated. And Nigel said he would protest to the Pope to cancel it. And why would an unqualified child be nominated? And Shuri thinks that this Nigel is a real bastard. And she says, well then, judging by the way you're acting, it looks like your nomination is going to be canceled, even if Nigel doesn't say anything. But to her surprise, a servant appears behind her, calling her Miss, and asks if they should call the Inquisitor, just as a precaution. But Yuri thinks not. 70% of the Inquisitors are from the Sept family, and he starts to grab our boy. But to both of their surprise, a demonic being appears inside the academy, and the children start to run. And our baby thinks this is it, his insurance policy. That servant tells the young lady to stay back, but that demonic wolf quickly sends the servant flying. And Nick gets really scared, seeing that monster advancing on her. But to her surprise, our little baby orders that wolf to stop by throwing his rattle at it, and with this dissatisfied look on his face, he says that he kept calling for it, but it came too late. And with that, the wolf, once again, famished, starts to growl at them. And Nika calls it a monster and activates her power, but Isaac tells that monster to get out of there, just by throwing his mana at it. This really scares the monster, and it starts crying in fear and just runs away from there, surprising everyone. And Whisper says that this is his master. He brought a monster that was resting in peace, beat it up and passed it off as part of the act. Meanwhile, Isaac thinks that he has to do whatever it takes to get his nomination. But quickly, the guards appear and ask where the monsters are, and tell them to stay away, and they think it ran in that direction. But that Nixept girl just keeps staring at our boy, and the guard asks her if she's okay, while Choro, looking very scared, thinks that this is an Inquisitor. And Choro says that they're leaving now. But that Inquisitor just tells them to stop right there, and that they can't leave until the investigation is complete. And Choro just thinks that they're screwed. He very nervously says that they don't know anything. But just then, Nixept tells Choro not to do anything unnecessary, because that child was the one who saved her. This really surprises both of them. And she asks if his name isn't Isaac. And she apologizes for what she said before, blushing a little for a 10-year-old kid. Well, they must be the same age, but the same height and the same physical shape. Definitely not. And then very nervously, she says it's not like she's super grateful or anything, but that he should understand what she means. And our little guy walks away, wondering what her problem is. And as he walks around, he thinks that he finally got his appointment, after saving some people. So it was true. And that little girl from before is just thinking that this child is the one her brother was talking about. And this is Heathcliff Rella. And now at the Eshwar mansion in the Patriarch's office, someone asks why he keeps refusing. Cardinal Anno, isn't this a good thing? Your grandson's appointment. But he just tells them to stop talking about it. And the person on the other end of the line says that, His Holiness, the Pope will be irritated. But the Patriarch says that's not his problem, and that his grandson will be educated at the mansion until he's fully grown. Model. But that guy said that if he keeps the child locked up, he's going to have serious problems in the future. But the Patriarch thinks he definitely already has them. Hasn't he heard the news? Apparently, there's a silver-haired baby wandering around the academy, which is making the Patriarch furious. And he just screams for Hilai and says they must go to the capital now, immediately, and they have to get there by tomorrow. But Hilai says that if they take the fastest route, it will take at least a week. But the Patriarch tells him he only has 23 hours and 48 minutes left, and looking very nervous. He says they have to run as fast as possible. And now the next day, Shuri knocks on Isaac's door and asks what he's doing, and if he's trying to wear the priest's robes with that tiny little body of his, and he just tells him to get out of there, because everyone is already there. They're going to laugh at him anyway. He asks if it wouldn't be better for them to just go. But just as Isaac says he's ready and starts opening the door, Shuri, looking very worried, is telling him to give up and go straight home. But as soon as he looks at the door, he is completely shocked, wondering what the hell he did. And with our boy apparently all grown up, he says they should go to his appointment now. And now the scene changes to the banquet hall. And inside, the students are waiting for the ceremony to begin. But just then, someone tells them to stand up, because the patriarchs are arriving. And then the heads of the greatest families in the empire arrive, along with our boy's uncle. Just think these are the patriarchs of the 5 great families. And he's for sure the next patriarch of Exua, the Blue Cardinal. But to his surprise, the king comes up from behind. He isn't late. And when he looks, he wonders what he's even doing there. The king asks him if he has seen Isaac, but his brother asks why he's looking for him there. He's supposed to be at home, and more importantly, why does he have that look on his face? It seems he might have run the whole way over here. And he says yes, it happened. He asks if Shuri has arrived yet. His brother says not yet. At that moment, someone announces that His Holiness, the Pope, will now make his entrance, and everyone must show the proper respect. And so the old Pope walks among them. He is Julio Bert, the current Pope. And everyone starts to say, "May glorious divine grace be upon him," kneeling before the Pope. And so he sits on this sort of throne. He then asks his esteemed guests to also be seated. And after everyone sits down, he announces that the ordination ceremony will now begin. And those whose names are called must step forward. And the first name he calls is Isaac Exua, to the Patriarch's surprise. The man asks if Isaac Exua is not present. Meanwhile, the Patriarch thinks, why does he keep calling his name? He already knows he's not here, and he should have. His name was removed before the ceremony began. But to the old man's surprise, our boy announces that he is there. He almost chokes on his wine, and when everyone looks, his uncle wonders how that bastard dares to show his face here. But when they do, they see that our boy has grown up overnight. And this is Isaac's new appearance, now looking over 10 years old, which leaves the Patriarch of House Bert absolutely furious, and his grandfather is also completely stunned. And so the Pope tells Isaac, "Exua, come to the front." And as he walks forward, Elright just stares at him and starts to cry, wondering when he had gotten so big. On top of that, he's wearing the priest robes that Elright had made for him. As the crowd stares at him, they wonder if he wasn't just a baby a moment ago. And did he really manage to escape the curse of the Skeleton King? And does he possess this much power? And that one girl from before blushes intensely, looking at our boy. The red-haired kid asks himself, how on earth did he grow so much? Meanwhile, our boy keeps walking toward the Pope, while his grandfather thinks that the Skeleton King is a miserable bastard and that he'll tear him to pieces. He wonders what the hell it did to Isaac, because his little boy would never smile like that. He must be under mind control, or something like that. The boys wonder if the Exuar's curse is finally gone. And if he's not a saint, then what else could he be? It makes no sense that he was cursed. It must have been more of a blessing than a curse. Even the Pope, looking very surprised, calls out his name, Isaac Exua, and our boy looks on, thinking, so this is the Pope. And he looks like he's over 60 years old, but the energy he's emanating is that of a true monster. However, his face seems to have the characteristics of every Pope he's fought so far. And he wonders if maybe he should just cut his head off right now. Meanwhile, his uncle Salvo in the back is just thinking, Isaac, please don't do anything wrong. And then he slams his fist on the table and says his hand just slipped. And they start making a huge mess, while his uncle wonders, what the hell are these lunatics doing? And then that guy announces that next up are Shuri and Shua, and that they should step forward. Meanwhile, our little guy is thinking that these guys are just getting in his way, and so Shuri steps forward, and the Pope just glares at the two of them. And this extra announces that for the next part of the ceremony, the ordained will greet the gods. It's finally time to be chosen by their gods. And they wonder which god will approach that child. Meanwhile, Isaac's grandfather and uncle, who were both kicked out of the banquet, are just watching from a distance. And Patrick says that a supreme blue god should appear. And Rele says yes, that must be the case. At least that's what he wants to happen. He says he supposes that no matter how bad things get, an evil god shouldn't approach him. And his father says that if that happens, they'll have to get rid of him. And she asks, get rid of who? Are you talking about Isaac? And the Patriarch says that the sacred vessel is what needs to be destroyed. And why would he destroy a child? And so the high priest approaches and puts his blood inside the sacred receptacle. And this blue god approaches him, and his father is overjoyed, saying that a supreme blue god came personally for him. While the gods celebrate happily, our boy steps forward, thinking, so this is the god the Exua serve, that god of light. And now with his blood, he pours it into that receptacle. And he thinks that whichever god chooses him, he's going to be a pain in the ass. But as soon as he pours his blood into the receptacle, the Pope is shocked when he sees the reaction. You start to wonder if this is really true, and just like that, as soon as the blood touches the water of that brilliant light, a shadow appears and comes out from inside the receptacle. And the Patriarch realizes that this is the Skeleton King. The Skeleton King's body appears before them, right on top of our boy. And as soon as the Skeleton King appears, everyone is shocked. The Patriarch quickly runs to attack him, but our Isaac is caught by the Skeleton King. The Patriarch gets there cursing him out and punching him in the body. But he manages to bind Isaac in chains and lift our boy up, saying that he has waited a long time for this saint to arrive. And he will definitely start by killing him, and after that he will annihilate the entire Holy Empire. And our boy looks at the scene and wonders, what is this? Who the hell is this guy now? He looks exactly like my past self. And the vice leader, absolutely furious, starts yelling at him, saying that this must be the fake one, and that his master looks much more like a loser, a pathetic one than this guy. Isaac is really pissed off at him for saying that. And this is the Patriarch of the Red House. And the Pope activates his powers and unleashes them on the Skeleton King. And even the Patriarch of Exua feels the pressure of those powers. He orders everyone to fall back. And once again, the Patriarch of Exua summons his blue power and hurls a gigantic serpent at the skeleton, which hits him dead on. But the skeleton blocks the attack and calls him the Indian Patriarch. And he says that his power must be limited due to the curse, and doesn't he think he should just stay quiet in his corner and do nothing? But the Patriarch says that he's been holding back from destroying this building, but now he doesn't care anymore. Since he talks too much, he's going to destroy him with everything he's got. And he summons that gigantic whale, which surprises that fake rescuer. And he puts Isaac in front of him and asks if he really wants to kill the precious little saint of his house. And our little boy, very surprised, wonders what he's talking about and how he can summon something so dangerous when he himself is being held hostage. And besides, why is this giant whale opening its mouth now? And then the crazy Patriarch says that the saint won't be killed by an attack of this caliber. But our terrified little boy says he's definitely going to die. And just like that, the whale attacks them. And a huge explosion happens in that building. And to the Skeleton King's surprise, his specter starts to disappear. And after that massive explosion, King Mudorele picks up his skeleton. It's dead. They don't understand what that is, and that was the last time he was seen. It was 70 years ago, when he cursed the Exua after he left, and he's finally trying to come back, after storing up his power for so long. But Zay thinks that's not true, because this bastard is a fake. And Ryan runs towards him asking if he's okay. And the people say that even if he is a member of the Exua, how could he possibly be okay after being hit by that attack? And from what they heard, the Skeleton King called that kid a saint. And maybe he really is a saint. And they thought he would be completely destroyed by that whale. But none of that happened. And Isaac says that he definitely didn't die, because that was just an illusion created by the Skeleton King, which surprises everyone. Then Whisper says he found someone who copied him, a shadow that he had left around there. And there is definitely something wrong with this situation. And Isaac asks if he noticed it too. He was using his mana, and he wonders if maybe his mana core also ended up somewhere. And it's not completely unlikely, considering that a portion of his bones ended up in the saint's treasury. And it's good for him that the fake one did this. I just need to catch him, finish him off, and take everything back for myself. And with that devilish look on his face, his grandpa in the back just lets out a sigh, thinking that just a moment ago he was sure that, in that moment, if he hadn't attacked the Pope, he would have definitely killed Isaac along with the Skeleton King. And he just stares at the Pope healing the others, looking like a harmless little old man. And in the Pope's mind, he asks himself why. He can't believe this. The primordial god, the one the Golden House has waited thousands of years for. Even the 5 supreme gods fall short in comparison to him. And yet, he chose that Exua brat, and not someone from his own house. And he filled with rage. Man, he was fuming. And he was drawn right over Isaac. Isaac asked what was wrong. He calls Isaac to come over real quick, with this really pissed-off look on his face, saying that it seems his grandson has grown up splendidly by buying the Skeleton King's curse. And our boy wonders why his face looks so terrifying. And dear God, his grandfather said he's going to buy him some delicious sweets, which makes Isaac terrified, wondering if he follows him, he'll definitely get wiped out. But then that girl from before calls him Your Grace. and it seems Isaac can't go back yet, because several demons appeared right after the Skeleton King's appearance, and the situation isn't 100% resolved yet. And with that, our Isaac stands up and tells his grandfather that it seems he has no choice, and he, smiling very happily, thinks that it's not time to go home yet, charging up his power to face all those demons. And so, he and that girl start walking towards the monsters, while she thinks that this kid is so arrogant, and how dare he claim to be a saint, just because he grew up suddenly. Meanwhile, a very happy Isaac says he doesn't know what they're plotting, but he's going to take advantage of this situation to turn it to his favor. And now the two of them are ready to fight, while each of them thinks they're going to show everyone who the real saint is. And just like that, Isaac invokes his power and begins to channel an incredibly strong light energy, unleashing his skill, Purification. This ability begins to spread to the demons and the old men watching nearby. Say that. This is an excellent demonstration of the sacred art of purification. And the man beside him says he thinks it's been 100 years since he's seen a light as pure as this one. But one of them in the back wearing glasses points out that he's just using the sacred art of purification, which is basically a cleansing art. And he wonders why he isn't using an offensive sacred art. But the guy next to him says it also purifies mana, and maybe he's trying to prevent the demonic beasts from being summoned again. As they watch those demons get completely cleansed, Isaac thinks to himself that he had no other choice but to ask to learn the sacred arts from that fire spirit. But still, he thinks, once the sacred art of purification reaches level 6, it deals damage per second over a large area. He starts to smile devilishly at all of those demons as they all begin to suffer immensely. And he thinks that the most important reason for this sacred art of purification to be necessary right now is... But just then, the other kid interrupts him, telling him to get out of the way, yelling that his little art isn't going to eliminate the demons, while she thinks he's able to use rank 5 sacred arts. Still, that must be some kind of talent that only appears once every few centuries. But our shy little boy back there just gives her the middle finger, as he imagines that with that amount of talent, he doesn't stand a chance against her. And so she tells him to pay attention, and that they can only be eliminated by using an offensive sacred art, powerful enough to deliver the attack to multiple parts at the same time. But to her shock, our boy starts laughing in her face, and he asks, "What do you mean multiple parts and deliver the attack?" That's hilarious. And she, quite embarrassed, asks if he hasn't learned what these monsters are, and that they have a powerful regenerative ability. So it's necessary to kill them in a powerful way. But then, Zack once again starts laughing in her face. He steps in front of her and says that she's the one who doesn't know anything. And Bert in the back thinks he really should have let the Indigo Patriarch take him. But then Isaac just says that they are all bait, leaving them completely confused. And then Isaac says their core is right over there. And activating the power in his hand, he says found it. And it's basically an insect. And that, Bello asks what a little insect like that could possibly do. But Isaac finishes off that insect, and after that the insect causes an explosion, surprising everyone. And Isaac says that it gradually poisons people, and it's dangerous because people die before they even realize they've been poisoned, as the poison slowly spreads through them, which scares everyone. And Isaac says that the skeleton said he wanted to annihilate the entire Holy Empire, and the priests are the future of the Holy Empire, making that devilish little face once again, which gets everyone worried again, running and searching for where the insects are. But our boy observes something. They have all already intercepted the insects, and he warns the samurai not to do it, because if they kill them all at once, things will definitely go to shit. But right after he finishes speaking, the radiant energy begins to reach them, and the soldier says this is his chance, and he'll be recognized as the purifying saint. All the students collapse from the poison, and Isaac thinks this is it. He really is a skull, thinking that this is his chance. But to his surprise, the Pope activates the 9th rank sacred art, mana absorption, absorbing all of that dark mana into his staff, which leaves everyone surprised. And then the old man says that they don't have to worry anymore about being poisoned. And Isaac, like an idiot, thinks that these assholes from the Pope's family never let him help, and that just makes things difficult. But as he's thinking about this, a demon wolf approaches him from behind, saying, "How dare you challenge the great king? He will certainly not forgive you, and he will take one more person like you, even if it's the last thing he does." But Isaac senses that attack, and he quickly looks at the monster. Staring, he directs his pressure at him, which scares that little wolf. And paralyzed, he asks himself what kind of power this is, and simply starts to run. And while Isaac thinks they're just trying to act like hotshots, but they're actually nothing. But that Bert guy in the corner looks really dejected, because he saw that scene and was shocked, thinking that Isaac made a demon run away with nothing but a glare, and he's already clenching his fists, wondering how that kid could possibly do something like that, something that only those as powerful as the Pope are able to do. Meanwhile, Isaac just walks away, leaving that shitty little situation behind. And now, at the meeting of the houses with the Pope, they're discussing something. It seems there was a problem with this holy water artifact, that the invocation illusion array was engraved on it, and they're investigating the merchant from whom the item was purchased. So he asks them to wait for more information in the future. And the representative from the Red House then brings up the issue that an increase in the trafficking of foreigners was the problem. But the Cardinal says that was just one of the problems. The real issue is the Empire's barrier, the one the Sacred Dragon is protecting. That is the fundamental problem. And now back at the House of Exua, Isaac is thinking that the demon invasion must have weakened the Empire's barrier. And since the Sacred Dragon is linked to the Imperial family, the Papal family has no responsibility for it. And that's to be expected from that family, considering how cunning they are. But right behind him, his uncle starts calling out to him, "Nephew, you can even read the newspaper by yourself now." And he starts congratulating him completely in shock. And as Isaac stares at him, he realizes this guy is a total weirdo. But Hilario, right beside him, says that Isaac can speak fluently now, and they can finally have him read the cursed letter from the Skeleton King. Meanwhile, Isaac, looking at him, thinks about how annoying he is. But at that moment, the Patriarch enters the room and says it's great that the two of them are there. He then asks Isaac to leave them alone for a moment, and Isaac agrees. After he leaves the room, the Patriarch activates a third-rank sacred art. Absolute silence. He looks over and asks, "What's the problem? For you to make me go as far as using a sacred art?" A silent one. And Patrick just says that he had to do it, since he can't be sure. Not even in his own office. And he says it's about Isaac, because during the ordination ceremony, he thinks Isaac was chosen by an evil god. He then says it's certain that the god who chose Isaac is not a normal one, and it's a symbol that has never been seen before at an ordination. The only ones who saw it were the Pope and the Golden Cardinal, and the Pope tried to kill Isaac. And so, he asks if the Pope really tried to kill Isaac, and the Patriarch says yes, and he wouldn't have done that, unless the god Isaac chose was a god. An evil one. But Isaac's uncle says that maybe it's not an evil god. Maybe he was chosen by one of their own house's gods. This completely surprises both of them, making them think of the god of the Golden Faith. And then he says that those people, they hate it when other people get involved in what's theirs. And so, if a person from Exua were to choose a god served by the people of gold, they wouldn't take it lightly. And if the Pope's family is like that, then it must mean he chose a god that had only been chosen by the Golden House before. And so the Patriarch thinks about this. But Isaac's uncle says that it might even be possible that he might have chosen a god that not even the Pope's family has chosen. And Hilario is surprised. He says that this is actually possible if it's Isaac. And so the Patriarch asks the two of them if they think that child would have chosen an appropriate god. And Hilario doesn't know what to say. But his brother on the other side says there's no way. And so Isaac's grandpa orders Goal to get in contact with the house of Papau and try to find out which god Isaac made contact with. And Goal asks why him, but the Patriarch says that if he succeeds, he will give him the chori, a sacred relic, and Goal says he will do it. Then Isaac's grandpa says that from now on, until Isaac starts his practical training, they will take special care of him. And if Isaac ends up with the same test results of faith as last time, then that child will probably end up as a dark priest. This leaves the three of them completely shocked, praying that isn't the case. And then the cat thinks that if that bastard really becomes a dark priest, the entire house will be accused of treason, and everyone will be dragged down. It seems like a conspiracy, and even his shuri will be in trouble. And then the Patriarch, looking very serious, says they need to stop it from happening at all costs. And now on another day, Hilai says they'll start their practical training soon. And he tells the two of them that his old seniors used to haze him a lot. But that's all in the past. And our boy, looking very irritated, thinks that he should just stop this, because it's as if he's selecting for the army again. And then Hilai explains that they will be acting as his seniors for their training. Here they'll discover which specialty suits them best, and they'll learn what a priest really does, which isn't taught at the academy. And the boy, very happy, says yes. And then Hilai says they will make a contract with the god as soon as it's completed. But Zeke raises his hand and says his name, and asks when they will participate in the offering ceremony. And Hilai, very happy, asks if he's really interested in the offerings. Our boy very confidently says yes, especially with the execution of the Skeleton King's servants. And Hilai, all excited, says he's very happy to see his faith growing, and that he wants to explain it to him. And the two of them listen attentively. Hilai explains that the offering ceremony is when they will make offerings to the gods, and various people gather for the celebration, and a lot of people really do come for it. But the main and most important thing is about your feelings and faith toward the gods. And he starts telling this incredibly long story, which just bores everyone in the room, and our boy gets very irritated, thinking that he really gets a kick out of spouting nonsense. And after his story, he says that the human offering is similar to a festival, and the first thing everyone thinks of at a festival is to have fun and enjoy everything together. And so Isaac thinks that then that means the lower gods and angels can participate in the ceremony. And he hopes to find some because he's going to tear them to pieces. And after finishing his long-winded story, Hilai says, "You must be eager to execute the servants on your own." And that's what he should be thinking. That's the kind of righteous hostility that's needed. And Goal says that the teams with the best scores will have the privilege of executing the Skeleton King's servants. And so Shuri must do his best. But Isaac is very surprised to hear this, thinking that then it's going to be a crappy group project. But right next to him, Hilari says he wants them both to get good scores so they can cleanse their dreams. And our boy says he understands, thinking there's nothing he can do. He'll have to kill some of them to save the rest. And putting on a cute act, he says he'll do his best. And Hilari is very happy about that, thinking that he really is an adorable child, with him making that face right in front of him. But Goal says he wants to go back to the topic of redemption and asks which god chose him. And our boy gets really pissed off at his attitude, and he says he doesn't remember. But it was a disgusting symbol, enough to make him vomit, while the two of them think about Isaac becoming a dark priest, thinking that this was for sure his absolute ruin. And apparently it was an evil god. And then Hilari says it's all right, and that there are some strange symbols for the gods. And Gallo says yes, and in the end the most important thing is faith, while our boy says he doesn't care. And then Hilari says he just remembered that the Golden Cardinal wanted to see him. And our boy asks what that guy wanted. But to Isaac's surprise, someone starts calling his name. And when Hilari and Goal see this, they're really surprised, because in front of them is Akina Burt, and she says she has business to discuss with Isaac. And Hilari is shocked by this, wondering why she's there to see Isaac. And Goal tells him he doesn't know either, starting to panic. And then she takes Isaac's hand and says she thought he was the useless one, and she's being dead serious. So our little boy hearing this gets really pissed off, thinking that this chick is crazy, and why is she talking to him like that? While she smirks at him from behind. And then she said that she now realized he hadn't shown himself to the world for the past 10 years because of his training, and that he didn't want his skills to be contaminated by those idiots at the academy. And she realized it at the ordination, and that he's definitely excellent and incomparable to the other idiots. And it's a waste for him to be stuck doing practical training. Isaac wonders what this crazy woman wants, and Esper says he thinks she's a little nuts. And then she asks Isaac to train with her, under his grandfather's tutelage, and they will fall headfirst into the real thing, and he should take her hand. And they should go rip the skeleton's head off together and lead the Holy Empire, which makes the plot really confusing, making you wonder what the hell this is. And Shuri, on the other hand, thinks that maybe this is a new kind of bullying from the Pope, or maybe she's actually being serious, and those are definitely good conditions. And he thinks that Isaac will definitely accept. But our boy just slaps her hand away and just tells her to leave, which leaves her quite surprised. And then he says he'll continue with the practical training and just tells her to go away. And then the boss thinks that this guy is a complete lunatic. And so she tells him that he doesn't need to worry about his qualifications as a priest, because she's not just asking him to train, but will also give him the equivalent of 10 years of experience. But Isaac said he doesn't care, and if she wants to take someone so badly, she should take Shuri. This leaves him shocked, and she says no. The two of them are very different, which leaves Shuri really pissed off, thinking that these two are definitely a couple of assholes. And then she keeps saying that he has the talent to scare off a monster with just a look. And Whisper, very happy, says that she must have seen him make the monster run away using Intimidate. And Isaac thinks that, yeah, apparently that was it, but he doesn't want to talk to her. And so he says he'll say it again. She can leave, because just the thought of being taught by the Pope makes him want to vomit, which leaves Ultron in shock. He's trying to say that his grandfather is someone who makes people vomit just from looking at him. And just as he was about to start cursing the Patriarch, someone puts a hand over his mouth and pulls him away. And then the Patriarch says that his grandson is busy, covering his own mouth so he doesn't say any stupid shit, telling her not to get close to his children. But she says that even if he is the Indicus Patriarch, the Patriarch cuts her off, saying that if she goes out with him, he'll be a bad influence on her, shocking everyone. Meanwhile, watching from above, he realizes that he's actually telling the truth. Meanwhile, Isaac is really pissed off, thinking that the Exua are complete scumbags, and that he will most certainly lead them to ruin and destroy this family. But that's in the next part of this video, because unfortunately part 3 has come to an end. So if you guys liked it and want the next part, let's get this video to 7,000 likes. And as you all know, when more chapters come out, I'll release them to the members first. Then, once a good number of chapters have accumulated, I'll compile them all and release them to the public. So to get these videos, just click Become a Member down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel, so so we can finally reach 100,000 subscribers. And so that's about it. I'm signing off for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!